How do I do that?
I would make that one
This?
bigger. Yep.
This right here?
Yep, make that big. There you go. And then hit participants down at the bottom. Down there.
Here?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Is this where I can do
I wouldn't
the,
hit it there. I would hit it where it actually says participants.
right here?
Yep. There.
Oh.
And now you'll have everybody. Now you go through and make them all
Okay, that's right.
co-hosts.
Um,
You're not going to have any public on there, so if you, as long as you're not going to have any public comments, your problem, you don't really have to go through this whole.
Steve, sound check.
loud and clear, Steve. Don't make this very easy.
No, when you have a lot that you have to do.
Yeah.
Phil, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, Joe.
Okay, I'll put myself on mute. Just want to make sure. Thanks.
Do you want to be a call?
Left-hand side in the middle. Down next to participants.
Yeah.
Yep, so I check the box to unmute themselves. That way they unmute themselves. There you go. And now only your co-hosts can. You're good there. Yep. Is that Mr. Walker? Oh, no, that's
No, I'm not a co-host, it says.
right. All right. Well, it looks like it's 5:30. I know that we're probably going to have a few more of our committee members come in a little late, but if that happens, we can get them set up. So here we are at our second meeting for the Overton Evaluation Committee. And here we're going to be on our agenda tonight. We have 3 developers that we're going to be discussing or interviewing. So the format would look something similar to this, where they would have 15 to 20 minutes to do a presentation, kind of outline what their proposal and go more depth into any of those items. And then 20 or 25 minutes, the committee will have to talk to those developers and ask those questions. In the packet, I did put in there a matrix for the committee members to use. Now, you don't have to turn these in. This isn't a homework assignment, but what this is really for you is just a way for you, committee members, to keep track of what you're hearing tonight and make some notes to help you in your deliberations. Ryan has suggested you could use a scoring of 1, 2, 3, depending on how you, if that makes sense to you. But it's a way for you to kind of record your thoughts and make notes as you go through this deliberative process. Just a couple things. We have everybody here on mute. You're all muted right now. And if you so wish to talk, you can always unmute yourself. But here's a really cool little trick for Zoom. If you want to just briefly unmute yourself, just press the space bar, and that'll unmute you for the time that your space bar is depressed. Does that make sense? Also, we'll have you, if you need to put your hand up, we can see you with a hand raised, or you can just put your hand up if you're on video. Those are some of my comments. Also, there was a letter that was circulated, I think, amongst the committee regarding some of the factory condos concerns. Just know that I think that here tonight we're looking at just the developers. We're trying to keep this process going forward. So I think the letter kind of had some good questions that city staff will be working on, but right now that's a little premature, as we are not anywhere near the part in this process where we would have answers to most of those questions. So tonight, let's just focus on the developer interviews that we have, and we have 5:45, we have Gearlings Midwest Construction. At 6:30, we have Vina Clausen, and 7:15, we have Habitat. And just for some of you, Habitat is a company, it is not part of Habitat for Humanity. I did hear some questions about that last time. Habitat is its own company and is not affiliated with Habitat for Humanity. At this time, I'm going to turn this over to Ryan Kilpatrick to see if he has any questions or some comments. And then if anyone has questions before we begin, please raise them now. So Ryan?
Thanks, Kate. Yeah, very well said. I'm going to reiterate a couple of quick points, and then we'll see if any committee members have questions before we get started with our first presenter. So anticipate that we'll be hearing kind of a direct presentation to you all for a few minutes from each developer, and then we're going to open it up to you to ask questions. Use those question prompts that Kate provided for you. Feel free to ask additional questions if you want. The goal here for tonight is to really get a strong sense of each development firm, their area of expertise, their understanding of the project site and what the community is really looking for. And for you to kind of feel out, are they the right fit for South Haven? Are they the right fit for this particular site? The developer that you recommend to City Council, and then when City Council ultimately chooses their final developer, we want this to be an organization that everybody feels very comfortable working with, that feels like they've got all the tools that they need to get the job done as described. So part of your job is to determine, is each firm up to the task, and do they have the proposal that fits the community's vision? Now, to reiterate one of the points that Kate just made, the proposals that they're providing right now include conceptual frameworks, but not defined site plans. So what they're going to show you is concept plans that have not yet been vetted, haven't been taken through the Planning Commission. They're essentially illustrating what they believe that they could build on the site, but it's going to take a lot more due diligence and community input before an ultimate site plan gets adopted. So I think questions about their proposed designs are definitely appropriate. But what you see on the screen tonight and what you see on paper is not exactly what any developer is proposing to build yet. There's going to be a lot of community input that goes into that process. It's going to have to go through the Planning Commission and a comprehensive review before anything gets adopted. So just to follow up on Kate's point, we don't want to get too deep in the weeds in specifics regarding the site plan or building typologies or heights. What we want to figure out is, are they able to deliver on the core characteristics that you really want to see on this site? Can they provide a certain level of affordability for the local workforce? Can they ensure that there's some level of homeownership product that can be retained by year-round residents, not necessarily just renters or frankly, seasonal renters? And do they have the capacity to get the project done as described? So that'll be your job for tonight. Does anybody want to talk through any of this before we start with the first development team? Any questions from the committee?
It doesn't appear that we do. So it looks like if we want to get started a little early, that might be a good thing. We've got a lot of work ahead of us.
Yeah, I think that's great. We did build in enough time that hopefully at some point in this evening, you'll have a couple of minute break where you can run to the restroom if you need to or grab a snack. But I think getting started early would be great. So Kate, I'll let you make an introduction to Midwest Construction and we'll pick it up with them.
All right, I have a number of participants here on the right-hand side. I'm not sure which one of these is going to be Midwest Construction.
Oh, you're probably going to want Mike Corby or Scott Gearlings from their team.
Do see Mike Corby, so I'm going to make him a co-host so he can get started here.
I think this is Mike Corby. Good evening. I think I see John Boonstra or Jay Boonstra. I think he may be with Scott. I'm with Integrated Architecture. John is with Midwest, and
okay.
He and Scott may be together.
All right, I've unmuted and made Mr. Boonstra and yourself co-host. So I'm not sure who wants to get started. Mr. Boonstra or you, Mike?
John, is Scott with you?
Mike, this is John Boonstra. I think Scott might be under Jackie.
Under Jackie, okay. Jackie, I see Jackie there. Good.
Okay.
It's an interesting aspect of this.
Well, I think Scott's at home. I apologize.
I get it. I get it. I think the way we had discussed was to have Scott maybe start out, and then I will immediately follow.
Okay.
And Mike, maybe that's not Scott. I think a lady just.
Yeah, this is not. Jackie is Jackie from Albemarle. Sorry.
Well, John, did you want to start, or do you want me to go into?
Well, Mike, why don't you go ahead, and then hopefully Scott jumps on. I know he knows the meeting was at 4:45. So.
Oh, he might be. Yeah, it's 5:39. So,
Mike, do you want us to share screen, or would you like to share your screen so that we can pull up the proposal from Midwest?
It would be best if you could just pull up the proposal, and then we can toggle through that screen if you don't mind. Great. If you've got it on, if you've got the proposal that was submitted.
Let me get it here. Just hold on a second.
Thank you, Kate. And thanks everybody for all your patience as we all sort of figure out how to navigate technology together. These meetings are always fun and interesting.
Right. Well, I'll maybe just because of Scott probably not realizing that we'd actually be early. I'll start with what he expected kind of me to go through, but just I know a lot of you through having worked closely on some of the.
Mike, Scott's there now. So if
okay, Scott.
Okay. Oh, here we are.
Hi, Scott. I see Scott. They're a little early, Scott. So, do you want to get started?
Yes, let's go. I apologize for the delay. I'm not technically as good as some others.
They were able to get things started, so we're ready to roll.
That's wonderful. Okay.
All right, so I think I'm sharing the proposal from Gearlings. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
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 And just let me know, I guess, what page you need me to go to.
You know, I think I think we would like to kind of give our overview,
Okay.
Kate, if that's okay, and maybe Mike could start kind of basically with the design and how we got to that, and that we've been working along with him for actually a couple months on trying to come up with a good solution for this project. And maybe Mike, I'll let you go, and then we can go back and forth as needed.
Okay. All right. So just a little bit of a background. Obviously, we worked through many of kind of the aspects of this in some of the community engagement process, but just a little bit of background on our firm. We are heavily involved and have been for many years now on addressing kind of the housing needs, and most specifically to Michigan, although we've done some work outside of the state of Michigan. And we're working with both communities as well as development teams to try to do what we can do as designers to not only just get housing into communities, but also to get housing that has a strong sense of place, really knits into the context very well. And we focus on issues like walkability and sustainability and high quality. So we're trying to bring very desirable kind of housing options into communities that fit. And I think that's a really, really big part of our focus, and something that we've obviously looked at as we've looked at solutions here. So the design that you're seeing is embodying a lot of that. So we're trying to bring diversity and density, yet still do it in an appropriate way. So if we could scroll up to the design.
Yep, I will get there. It just takes a little bit longer.
Right.
Page 8, that is.
Okay.
Yes.
And I think Ryan made a good point. Even since we made the submission in response to the RFQ, we've already talked about some alternative directions. So I think Ryan's point is well taken. What you're seeing is a good reference point, and it certainly we can explain a lot of the things that we want to accomplish here. But we've also talked about some other things that I'll mention in a bit. But right now, this current site plan includes 137 units with a focus on walkability. So you can see a lot of emphasis on edges and how we kind of use architecture to frame the edges, but also to contextually kind of relate to some of the things that are already in place, like the trail to the west of the property there, and then making sure we establish good edges both on Elkenberg and Indiana. And create, because the property is large enough, we really wanted to make sure that the internal circulation felt like it was part of the neighborhood versus being just arriving into a parking lot, for instance. We want the entranceway to be, tree lined, walkable pathways with front doors on those lanes. So I think it's very important that part of the current fabric of that area of the city be kind of expanded. We do have a kind of call it a community within a community or a neighborhood for what it's worth. And we've got a community center, but the idea was to kind of, we've got a unique aspect here with the trail on the west edge. So we actually, what we call our type A units are 2-story townhouses, and they have front porches. They have rear loaded garages. So we've got kind of an alleyway in the back. So it's less car centric and more pedestrian centric along the the fronts of those homes. We've also then introduced other, again, with the focus on diversity of housing types, the type B units are townhouses as well. They're a little bit smaller format, again, with the idea that we'd be able to meet different price points. Some of the units have garages, and some of them do not have garages. Again, addressing that price point thing. And one of the things we've talked about with the Gearlings Development Group is possibly actually even shifting the type B units that are kind of in the center of the drawing there. Looking at actually doing some single family detached, smaller format homes. And the reason we wanted to do that is to look at both adding some additional diversity of housing types, but also if for some, if in the future there's some potential that property that is kind of accepted there in Indiana becomes available for continued expansion of this development, then we felt that would be a great way to segue into continuing, call it that enclave of single family homes to Indiana. We also have, as I said, other two-story townhouses kind of fronting our new entry road from Indiana. Those are without garages. And then the other two kind of housing types that we've got are essentially stacked flats, with the ones along the eastern edge there in the purple being two-story flats, and then the ones that are kind of on the southwest corner of the property being three-story stacked flats. We do understand the sensitivity to the development to the west there on Elkenberg, and so again, our team is very interested in engaging in a more formal way with the local properties and the community at large, and understanding some of their concerns to have this plan ultimately be the right plan. We do have some community gardens that we're planning. We're looking at, the wonderful thing about this particular site, it's got a lot of amenities within the area, both recreational and so forth, but these pathways, like the trail and everything, are great. And we were looking at kind of bringing some kind of community gardens in there to maybe give another amenity and component to this particular area. And then the community center would be a social hub of this kind of neighborhood. We're also talking about introducing some units there too. So maybe that's a two-story building with some apartments above the community center itself. So it's really focused. Our focus has been on walkability, diversity of unit types, affordability in terms of having different scales of housing options for individuals and families to look at. Yeah, it's really something we're excited about. We feel it knits into the neighborhood very well. And I guess I'll stop at that and let Scott continue with maybe some of his points. Sure. If you have any questions, I don't know if we're holding questions to the end or not, but I'll be happy to take any questions if there are any now, or I'll let Scott continue.
Yeah, and I don't know what the format is exactly either. So Kate, feel free to interrupt if anyone would like to make a comment or whatever, and we're certainly willing to talk at the end or during this time, whatever works best for you all. Just to add a little bit to what Mike said, you know, I know diversity of housing types is kind of a goal of the city. We're trying to be real sensitive to that. I also know home ownership is important, as we've done a couple projects in the Holland area with the same goals in mind. As we look at this, we've had a couple other housing projects where we've had, like these townhouses lend themselves very well to building them and doing all the platting as far as condominium goes, site condos with those. And I think with some of them, the square footage ranges from 900 on the lower side and up to 1,400 on the larger side. And there's a range of prices that could come out of that. I think the goal is, and as the city in their RFQ asked for, RFP I should say, was what to get some pricing for sale units under the 200,000 mark. And I think with that 900, that should be no problem. We're hoping to even have a price under the 200,000 range as we develop these. And just to add a little bit more to, having worked with Mike for a long, long time, well over 25 years, we've done multiple projects, all kinds of different projects, including in the last couple of years, a lot of housing projects where we've worked with municipalities in the same situation, not always land they owned, but land in the city that could be a former industrial site like this and others. We're doing a couple different projects in the Holland area right now. One's under construction and one is at the final stages of approval. I think those were submitted in here, so I don't need to go through all the details, but certainly those are projects similar to this. Some are like the McIntyre Farms is just plain old multifamily housing, where the one on Lakewood Boulevard is a mixture of some townhouse, some multifamily. There's also going to be a retail section there where we're putting 2 floors of apartments on the top. I don't even think that was in the submission we gave to you, because that has evolved over the time based on dialogue with the Planning Commission and the local neighborhood. Actually, we're trying to make sure the neighbors are satisfied with what we're doing, as we would definitely do here with you guys as well. You know, we've had a long time experience working with the city of South Haven. We're currently under a project right now with Midwest Construction, which is a sister company to Gearlings, doing the north side of the marina. We're under contract and they're in the fundraising mode with the Michigan Maritime Museum. So we have a really good connection in the city. I mean, we've done development projects years ago with the Pullman Industries, owned and leased a couple of their big plants, which I know employed a lot of people there. So and we're only a few miles away down the street. So we feel like it's kind of like home. And going through that, getting back to the housing end of it, we've had numerous experiences in this market. We're working with Integrated up north in Boyne City. They have a similar issue where they want to have a workforce housing project. They would like to not have seasonal renters, which I know in South Haven, you get a ton of people up for seasonal. It's kind of like Saugatuck, same kind of thing, where what we're trying to do and what we can do is put some deed restrictions on these to allow for this to be what your goal is. And I think we'd work with the city to help develop that. And I think, again, to the owner occupied portion, going back to that condominium part of the townhouses would lend itself very well to that. And if you add those up, there is a total of, there's 54 of those units, so a significant amount. And if we did do the mini home concept, we did a project here in Holland for Jubilee Ministries where we did a half a dozen houses that shared some amenity package, which this would lend itself to as well. And also if that other property came available, you could create a small little neighborhood of these. Those things sold out instantly. And those are at a price point that, depending on the square footage, that's the magic number. Those could be certainly a 150 or less kind of price point, which again, opens up is a huge need. I know I've read that housing study done there. I know the one in Ottawa County that we've worked extensively with Ryan Kilpatrick on from Housing Next, who is part of this as well. And actually, going back a little further, a couple of years ago, I think Mike knew there was a need. Ryan, of course, knew there was a need. We met Ryan, when he was with the MEDC, and then he moved over into this Housing Next position. And we sat with them, one of the largest lumber suppliers in Michigan, along with a few engineers, and tried to put together the most affordable box to come up with a way to create affordable housing or workforce housing. Now you can dress those up and skin those and put the fancy finishes in there, or you can scale them down. So what we'd like to do is kind of put a mixture of a few different finish levels to be able to create, and then again work with MISHDA, for example, which lends itself very well to their 4% LIHTC program in part of this project, certainly not all of it. And then as we go, another thing from a financial capability, we've done multiple projects like this, certainly larger than this, a couple of them going on right now. We've talked with a few lenders. There's a couple reference letters in our package here, one from a smaller bank, West Michigan Community Bank, and then from Huntington. And actually we're working with Huntington on the one project in Holland, and they're super excited about this South Haven if we are fortunate enough to be a partner with the city there. And I don't know if you all saw, but through the MEDC announcement last week, they're looking at putting $5 billion into Michigan for affordable housing. And certainly one project we have in Holland is on their list. And I talked to them today saying that we're potentially going to be working with the city of South Haven. And they said, oh my goodness, that would be a great project as well. So I think there are some good synergies that we could bring to the table with you all. And I've done a lot of talking. Are there any questions?
I think at this point, I'll stop the share and see if anyone has their hand up, or if any of the Overton committee have any questions for Mike Corby. It looks like Mike Neese does. Let me see if I can get Mike to unmute.
I think you did. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
I was looking for just a little bit more information. I really appreciated the data you gave us on the price points. I thought that was well stated and really helped. But I wonder if you have any kind of a target on what that mix might be, a percentage or whatever of market price back to what we might call affordable. Have you thought through that yet in terms of what that target would have to look like to make this project possible for you?
You know, I would say, and Mike Corby, feel free to interject. I would say probably in the neighborhood of 60%, 50 to 60% affordable, and the balance market rate and or for sale units. I think that's kind of where we're looking. Mike, what would your thoughts be on that? And it might be actually just a little bit early to tell until we get the final definition of what we're actually building in place. But I think that's our thought. I think there's a need for both. And you know what? I think we'd like to work with you and that market study to kind of come up with what we all think is the sweet spot.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, a 50 or 60% target for attainable or affordable would be great. I mean, most of the developments that we're working on around the state are not reaching those goals. So I think that would be good. I think the good thing, as Scott mentioned, I think that's really, really important is Scott's firm is partnering with Michigan Community Capital, which is a group that is sponsored in large part by funding from MEDC on the project that's in Boyne City and in Grayling. And I think they were looking for a construction partner. We're all in this together, and I think we bring design, and we've really focused on how do you create a very livable unit without being too large. So you want to balance efficiency with livability. Scott's, because he's got the construction firm as part of his group, he's able to kind of bring in and talk through how do we make things high quality yet not too expensive. And that's the challenge that I think most developers have. So anybody you're talking to about doing something on this property has to balance how do you get it affordable yet still kind of build it of a quality that works. And I think the other aspect that we're trying to infuse is just making sure it's walkable and it's livable and it's a great place to be. It's not just getting housing for the sake of housing in the community. So, but I think those targets are great targets, and we're working very closely with Scott's team on other projects to establish similar targets.
Thank you.
Question?
Yes, Kate?
Kate, we can't hear you right now. I'm going to go ahead and call on hands. I actually saw Gail first. Gail, you go ahead, and then Joe Reeser is going to be next after you.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. And I wanted to ask several questions. First, there was mention about the convenience store that's across the street, which is one of our our few African-American owned stores. I don't know if you've talked to the owner, Reverend Cobbs. I think he's on the tonight, but for the potential of challenge to residential uses, it was could you explain about why the convenience store would create a potential challenge to residential uses?
I don't think that came from us. I think one of the things that we've been working with city staff. In fact, we're working on it as I speak to create some facade ideas for that. I think just my experience with it, and one thing I failed to mention is we're doing some of the housing just to the south on Elkenberg, which is detached single family. Obviously, it's at a higher price point than what we're looking at for this. But I think we're actually looking at trying to take what I think is a great community or neighborhood amenity and actually help enhance it, at least in terms of what it. I think the operation is great. I think the focus that we've got right now is helping just get the facade making looking a little bit different.
Oh, so there's a maybe Ryan could speak on that, or do you already know, Ryan, about is the store going to be enhanced, or is there may be state funds to help Black-owned businesses that we could get grant money, etc.?
Yeah, Gail, I think that's a good question. My understanding is as a separate project from what we're looking at in terms of the Overton site, okay. Former city manager Brian Dissett and now more recently Kate Hosier has enlisted Mike Corby and Integrated Architecture to look at what are some of the things that could be done with that building to help enhance the physical appearance, improve business operations. Is it possible to put residential upstairs? And I think Mike's initial analysis was it might be hard to put residential upstairs because of the layout and configuration and age and building typology of that building. But we want to keep that a little bit separate from this process because we're not linking the developer or the financing or any of those things. But Gail, I'd be more than happy to talk to you at another time about potential grants that we could pursue with that property owner.
Okay, I just was, okay, that'd be fine. I just didn't know if the owner already has been contacted, Reverend Cobbs, who owns the store.
Yeah.
I would hope so. It was in the, it was in this, so that's why I was asking about it.
I see. Okay. So I'm seeing lots of hands up. I'm going to go to Commissioner Reeser first, and then I see you, Pastor Joe Wilkins. I saw Chris's hand. So we want to make sure we get everybody an opportunity to ask their questions. Go ahead, Joe.
You talked about 60% being affordable housing. I didn't understand what the other 40% was.
Either market rate and or for sale.
So when we talk about for sale, we want for sale to be affordable also.
Oh, without a doubt. That is our goal as well. And that's why we're talking about the different square footages and things like that. It's just, and Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know Well, I shouldn't say that. There is a down payment. There is a down payment assistance through the community. The same deal we're working with the Michigan Community Capital Fund that we could incorporate for the single family. And that's what we're looking to do. Actually, you bring up a good point, Joe, because I didn't mention that. But that is the part that would create affordability. When I say affordable, I'm just talking the percentage of rental property is what I was talking. All the single family, what we're looking to do, and I want to be careful because Mike's working on another project of a little higher end housing, I guess I would call it. Every part of this project, in my mind, is going to be affordable from say a less than 300,000 for a for sale unit in here. Does that answer your question?
Almost. If you look at our master plan, what we're looking for in Overton per the master plan are townhouses, row homes or stacked homes, and apartments. And the first two could be owner occupied. I mean, we're expecting to sell, if we had 100 homes, 60% of them we could be selling, whether they're a townhouse or a stacked home. And then the only ones that wouldn't be sold are apartments, which
right.
Later we could talk about the possibility of renting a townhouse, a rent to own also, which could make it more affordable. But
Right.
we still want to have the majority of these homes be ownership, because one of the things we know in America, our blacks have less ownership of homes, and therefore they have less wealth. The fastest wealth for any family, for any family to acquire wealth is through home ownership. So we'd like to have Overton be a place where people can buy the majority of the homes. Does that make sense?
It totally does. And I thought I said earlier, the 54 townhouses or stacked flats that we have could be all. We're gonna create them as condos, site condos. So every one of those could be sold.
Okay.
No, they won't.
Oh, wow, it was.
No, they won't.
Okay, we're getting some feedback from some
Yep.
folks. If you could all mute yourselves if you're not speaking right now. And then let's jump down. Pastor Joe Wilkins, I saw your hand up for a while.
Yes, I want to piggyback on what Councilman Reeser said. I just want to get some clarity on the 60 and the 40. And keep in mind, I'm under the impression that this meeting is really just to discuss the three different proposals. I'm not sure how every other stuff is getting involved, but the 60%, the 60%, will that represent the rentals?
Yes.
Okay, I thought I heard that. So, and the 40%, as you said, would be the market rate.
That is potentially, and that number could change. I mean, depending on how we go. And Ryan, I'd take your advice on that from a percentage standpoint. But we have done that in other areas where it's been around that ratio. That number can change depending on market demand.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions. So for the market rate, so it sounds like you envision the price point to be around 300,000?
Oh, for this, now we're talking for sale units?
Yeah, for sale units. Okay.
Because the affordable, and I maybe misspoke there, the affordable I was talking about on rental from a standpoint of if we did a 4% LIHTC deal where there would be certain rental rates based on the AMI, the adjusted gross income. And then with the for sale units, we're talking about, what we have here is a range in the one building B type would be 900 to 1,050, some with a one-stall garage, some with no garage. And then in the A type building, they're 1,200 to 1,400 square feet with a 2-stall garage. So depending on the size and breakout, and you know, the cost of those, like I said, on the smaller units could be, I'm hoping to be something under 200,000. And I think with the larger one, we would try to be under maybe that 275 and down. And it all depends on the square footage of each unit. So it's hard to say which one will be which. And actually we need to bid that part out. But looking at experience from previous projects we've done, I think those price points are within reason.
Okay,
For a
so
sale unit.
So the price points would be from 200,000 for the smaller ones, and maybe 300,000 for the larger units.
Yes, and then one other thing we did talk about is changing one other building, and Mike, feel free to add to this, about putting maybe a half a dozen of what we call mini homes, which are single homes that we've done successfully in Holland that sold in the neighborhood of 110,000. Now these are really small homes without a garage, which I think, looking at adding a little square footage, and with Mike's input, our goal there would be to be at about a 150 range is what we talked about today, which would be another type of housing that's not on this drawing yet.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I was going to say those housing, we designed those so that you can actually add to them. So they might start out as a smaller footprint for entry level, but then they've got the ability to grow as well. But those are the ones that Scott referenced would be even lower than the smaller townhouses.
So my last question, I guess my last question would be, what percentage of these housing units do you foresee a first-time teacher, a teacher, police officer, essential workers in this area, based upon what their average wages are, would be, what percentage of these homes would be available in price range for a first-time teacher that a first-time teacher could afford?
Are we talking, Joe, for rent or to
Early,
own?
not to rent, because
Okay.
this whole thing to me is ownership. Based on what Councilman Reeser said, ownership helps establish wealth. And for years, the African-American community suffered under the redlining. And so we're playing catch up. I know this is all about the missing middle, but you got to keep in mind too, the African-American community was impacted greatly on the redlining. So it would be nice that they have the opportunity to own homes in this area. And that number is going down. It's greatly going down year after year, or even on a national level. So, when you talk about teachers and police officers and essential workers in this area, based upon the median wages, what percentage of this property or these housing units do you think will meet your price range that they truly can afford on a teacher's salary?
Hey, Ryan, the piece that we used for Holland Township, which had those ranges, you recall what I'm talking about? It had teachers, it had like medical assistants, it had, you had a grouping that helped show the housing costs that they could afford. Now we use that in the rental work on that project for rental for the 4% LIHTC. But what were those ranges again of wages, and what would that equate to for because we can design, the beauty of it is this isn't final design. So, I mean, we could make, if we needed to do more smaller units than larger to fit a certain parameter to get more affordability, this is the time to do it, because there's nothing cut, cast in stone that says we have to use exactly what our footprint is. In fact, our goal is to work with you all, with the Planning Commission, to try and define exactly what is the best drawing. And we are certainly willing to do, more for sale than for rent, if that is what the ultimate goal is. And I guess, looking at the RFP, they were looking at a combination, which we are proposing, So certainly we could, how do I say, change our numbers to be more impactful if that is the goal of the city.
Okay.
Right, and I think for instance, let's just, if we could get units, sale units in the $150,000 to $200,000 range, you would need roughly about a household income of in the $35,000 to $40,000 or $35,000 to $45,000 range for the household income. So that's, if you've got two wage earners, they would be able to kind of get mortgages for houses within that range. So I think getting under that $200,000 for the unit tends to be an important aspect to do what you're kind of referring to is to get it in a price range that a teacher or somebody kind of making, you know, 35,000 or in that range to be able to afford.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Oh, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. You got about 8 more minutes, and I see a question from Christine and Steve Schlock. So
okay,
and Tim Stegman. So we might want to let me if I can get Christine. Do you want to unmute yourself and you can go forward with your question?
Yes. Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay. One thing that I haven't seen any discussion of is the apartment building. And that's a great concern to me, being that I live next to where it's proposed. Do you have flexibility in redesigning that idea?
Yes.
Can you tell me what kind of options you have? And I assume that's where you're planning on putting all the rental.
Yeah, I think as Scott mentioned, it's very difficult to kind of say what's rental and what's not. We just completed a project. We completed a project a few years ago in the Grand Rapids market that was all rental units, and they've just recently converted that entire project. It's about 18 units to for sale condominiums, and they all sold very quickly because they were able to offer them at a very low price point. So even though it's designed as what we call stacked flats or apartments, I think, you know, it's really, it's housing at maybe a little bit of different scale than the townhouses. But I think to your first question, yes, I mean, we understand there may be some sensitivities to what we do, especially on that building, which is adjacent to your condominium building. So we'll look at that, whether we've done some situations where we've kind of had the architecture that's adjacent to a project that needs to maybe be a little bit different scale, be a lower height, and then we step up as we get toward an area that's further away. So there are different strategies, but I think that the key is we're very flexible, and we're looking forward to kind of getting engaged with both the neighbors as well as the city to figure out what the right approach is.
Just one quick add-on before we take the next question, and this applies to all of the development groups generally. What I really want this committee to be focused on is the developer and their ability to deliver certain product types, not necessarily the site. The site plan is going to be negotiated after you pick the developer. What we're asking you to do is figure out who you feel will be the best partner to the city to do the project that you want. And so if things need to be changed about building configurations or building types, that conversation will happen down the road. They're giving you examples of what they think is possible to kind of spark conversation, but I don't want everybody to get too tied to the concept proposals that are attached to each of the individual development firms. That'll all be negotiated in much more detail after you've picked a firm that you feel comfortable working with.
Thank you, Ryan. Steve, you're up.
Yes, thank you, Ryan, for that. Appreciate it. I have 2 quick questions. We all know that the process and the design and the values will go up and down and through the negotiations and the zoning approval. So what my question is, what process do you use for resolving conflicts within the surrounding neighborhood versus what the dollar amount that you would need to get the project to be successful? And question number 2, if the project happens to get scaled down by, say, for example, 50%, would you still be interested in the project? Thank you.
Boy, I'll go backwards because to scale it down to 50%, it kind of depends on what the land acquisition cost would be then, but certainly would be interested, yes, to answer that question. And then repeat that first question if you would.
Yeah, I'm just looking for the kind of process and your experience of
Oh, yeah.
working with the community, and how do you resolve those conflicts with neighbors and everybody's different opinions.
Yep, no, and I hear it right in this meeting. And partly to answer your question, we're going through the exact same process with Holland Township right now. Mike is our architect on that project. We've got a civil engineer, Nadervelt, who we're working with, and we've had in fact, I had a half-hour phone call with a neighbor 2 days ago at the day after, or the week after the meeting, wondering if I'd spend some time with him, which I did. And quite honestly, one thing we took away from our earlier design is in one area, which was next to single-family homes that were ranch style and 2-story, we flip-flopped in our design to, at their request, where we had some 2-level multifamily, and swapped them with 3 levels. So now next to that neighborhood, we put some 2-level that made it not look like they'd have to look at a 3-story building out of their backyard. And, you know, those are things we're certainly willing to sit down and have a little discussion with some neighbors if it takes a meeting, like in the city of Holland right now, what we're doing there, we're doing a 5-story building. We had to have a public meeting in the library, and anyone and everybody could come, and we just had a conversation where we explained our process and went through it, and if there were questions or not. And it was, I think actually Mike is working on that project with us as well. And that meeting had a couple concerns that we addressed, and we look at this as being part of the community and being a neighbor. We're not from way out of town or anything. I come to South Haven a lot. Love your town. Actually was supposed to be there by boat, but the weather didn't allow it for the next couple of days. So you've got a beautiful city there, and we're only 20 miles down the road. So we look at this as home and want to be part of the community in that regard as well.
Thank you.
What we do is we focus, we try to start with knitting into the fabric of the neighborhood that's already there. So this would be an inclusive part of the neighborhood. The streets are meant to be enjoyed by everybody in the neighborhood. This isn't just kind of an insulated development. So the edges that we create are ones that kind of knit with what's already there. So I think it's very important to us.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I'm going to have Tim Stegman. I think he had his hand up. Tim, if you can unmute yourself.
I have, well, first I want to say thank you, gentlemen, for giving your presentation and being the guinea pig, I guess, because the other developers following you already have a taste for what's going on here. But I'll just ask you, I have a few questions, and I'll just ask them one at a time. That way you don't have to remember them. The first one is, I realize we're in a concept plan, but let's say the concept we looked at today was accepted and you had the funding. What would you expect would be the build out time? How long would it take?
Yeah, I think all in all, and Mike certainly add to this, I looked at your schedule with awarding and negotiating through the month of November. Obviously, we have the holidays in there in December, but, you know, as far as getting started with a first phase, you know, part of this project, if it goes the 4% LIHTC route, there's some time because it's MSHDA, it just takes a little additional time. But there are infrastructure that can go in. There's a whole lot of things that can be done and get parts, you know, part of, especially the for sale product, we could get started with that. And I think by springtime could be breaking ground, you know, spring, let's see, I think in your proposal, it talked about March to May or something like that, breaking ground. I think that's very realistic. I think we'd be working with you. I'm not worried. And I don't mean this to sound overconfident, but if we're working with the city right up front, I don't see problems with site plan approval and local approvals. The part that I think could take some time is the MSHDA program. Definitely, they run at their own pace. We can't change their schedule, but they certainly work within within a year that could be going, but I would say from the beginning portion, if we started now, we could be in the ground. I would say very quick, because we do need to do final drawings, get site plan approval, get building permits, etc. I would say 4 to 6 months, 4 at the absolute soonest. 6 months is realistic, could be with a shovel in the ground.
Okay, very good. Next one, you were proposing for this concept 137 units, and how many parking spaces were you figuring for those 137 units?
I don't know if typically we do 1.5 parking spots per unit.
Okay.
So with what's on there, I'd have to look closer. I don't want to say a number that's not accurate. So I'd rather say typically we do 1.5 per unit. And Ryan, you can add on because you've helped us with parking ratios. And we sometimes provide additional space that doesn't necessarily have to be built today, because if it's needed, you can add it. But what I hate to do is show a sea of asphalt, and it all depends on your 1 and 2 bedroom units, how many of each there are. The single family would have garage or parking areas by those anyway, and that would be roughly half of the project. It's really that L-shaped building is what I just don't dare say, because I don't know what's on that site plan. But typically we do a 1.5 ratio that covers the 2 and 1s to basically give a bedroom a parking place.
Okay, and then for yourself and the other developers that are listening in, and that way I only have to say this once tonight. So I know the Planning Commission, we're going to be looking at the parking pretty closely, and we want to make sure there is enough parking, maybe some overflow. And being this is definitely going to, or the intent is to be year round, we want to make sure there's a place to put snow, and that a lot of the traffic doesn't go out into the street. So that is one thing we'll be looking at. So you want to make sure that that's covered in your design process when we really get to the nitty gritty. And the last one, building height, your tallest building was 2-story or 3?
3 stories.
3-story, okay.
Most, and that's just, at this point, it's just the stacked flat apartments. All the rest of them are 2 stories.
Okay. And I think that's it for now. And thank you again for giving your presentation this evening.
Thank you.
You bet, thank you.
All right, well, it looks like we are just now at 6:30, so I'm going to have Vina Klassen come on. So if you just give me a minute, I'm going to do some transitioning. Ryan, is there anything you wanted to say while I'm doing this transitioning?
I think just generally that went real well. Mike, Scott, John, thanks y'all for joining us for the call. Appreciate your input and answering questions. This committee is going to do some deliberation tonight. There may or may not be a decision tonight as to the final developer selection, but I'm sure Kate will be reaching out once decisions are made.
Sure. And Ryan and Kate and the rest of the Planning Commission and everyone else, hey, thank you for the opportunity. We'd welcome the opportunity to work further with you. Done a lot of work in South Haven in the past and currently, and would love to make this one of our projects as well, to work together. So thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, so I have asked Chris Vina Klassen to go ahead and become a co-host. So Chris, if you are there, I'll unmute, you're unmuted, and then is there anybody who is with you that should be also be made a co-host?
Yes, Kate. Phil Komar, which I think he's just PK. Lori's iPad, that's Lori Pong. Eric Maring, they're waving, and then Jamie Booth.
Okay. Well, while I'm looking, so Lori's iPad is one, and Eric Maring, you said?
Eric Maring. Jamie, and Phil Comar, which is listed as PK.
Okay. All right, well, I'll get started with that, and if you want to go ahead and take that away.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you everyone for this opportunity. Our team's really excited to be here and excited to be a part of a potential South Haven project. Just format item, I'm gonna kind of take 5 minutes, and then HDJ, who's our design architect, will take 5 and talk about the project, and then Lori Pung from Pung Housing Consultants will take the last 5 to just introduce what we do, what our roles are, and how it'll impact this project. And our goal is to get through that quickly so we can get to the Q&A. That works okay, I'll get started. That good with you, Kate?
Yep, sounds good.
All right. So real quickly about our company, AJ Venneklausen Inc., which I'll refer to as AJV. We've been a developer and contractor in business since 1976. And we've been building and developing around the Southwest and Western Michigan market during that time. Much of that has been various projects, and especially in the last 20 years, we've developed a bigger focus towards multifamily, which we'll get into in more detail here pretty quick. And what I think is the key to understanding for us is that we've got a history of really focused on high quality, long lasting buildings. And as part of that is building strong collaborative relationships with all stakeholders in that project. So that includes certainly owners, lenders, community members, cities, municipalities, and everything in between. So when we try to focus on that collaborative behavior, generally it builds great long-term relationships. And we've seen that success even in South Haven, where Kate probably remembers this. And when Brian was around, we had the pleasure of building the Northside Marina back in 2013. And that relationship carried over when we started working on our project that we just finished this winter at the corner of Center and Huron, which was a multifamily project with 18 units of apartments, their market rate, and retail below. And during that, it taught us a lot. We learned a lot about the South Haven community. Kate and Brian and Bill Hunter from the water department all helped us learn and be successful. And hopefully we tried to return the favor by delivering a product that they were interested in, that the city was desiring, which was at that point a market rate housing product in the city center. And much, hopefully, the biggest success is that with 85% of those units occupied so far, 100% of those are people that live there full time. And that was a huge goal of the city. And we put some restrictions on the rental agreements so that there couldn't be short-term housing. And we had a few inquiries, but we essentially made it so punitive that they didn't come back. So it's all long-term housing, and we're excited about that. And taking some of that, we've been able to kind of understand that relationship, and we've been excited about this particular site as we understand, as well as we can anyway, that of what South Haven's needs are, and trying to fill that sort of missing middle of sorts, and we want to really try to help.
Right.
And also part of that is just plugging into the community. So our project, which I'm going to let HDJ talk about the specifics of the design, our project tries to plug into the community, not leave a huge footprint, and be real impactful, but meet all those needs that are needed by the city. And some of the little things are like trying to provide some additional funds to continue to improve an already great park, which is at Elkenberg Park. That was a suggestion that Bill Hunter made from the water department. We were trying to figure out ways that our location could benefit as well by that park, but also help continue to enhance the community as a whole. So that's a short thing about me. Our group, I'm going to pass this on to HDJ, and they can talk a little bit about the site itself, and just so you can understand what our proposal is at this point, and understanding, of course, that we are in that early phase, and But we just look forward to that feedback. So Kate, if you could give Phil, you could unmute him. He's PK.
Okay.
All right, very much good. Thank you, Kate. Chris, thank you for the introduction. My name is Phil Komar. I'm with HDJ. We are architects and engineers. With me is Eric Maring as well. Eric is also a partner with the firm, and he is the talent. He's our lead design architect for this project. I would like to just share a few things about HDJ, and I think they're pertinent to this project. We're really a team of collaborators. We're architects, engineers, interior designers, but our real specialty is affordable housing. We've worked in 39 states with either active or completed projects in affordable housing. It's really what we do. We are headquartered here in Michigan. Our primary offices in Michigan are in Grand Rapids and Muskegon, but then we also have offices in Phoenix and Indianapolis, Cleveland, and Chicago. But all of our architects and engineers who work on the design side and production are based here in West Michigan. We like to say at HDJ that we are improving lives through design, and it's the why behind what we do. And for us, affordable housing really is addictive. It's what we've grown to specialize in. We have projects in wine country. People say, well, why do you need affordable housing in wine country in Santa Rosa, California? Well, if you've ever been there, you realize that it's not all wine country. There's a class of people who work there, and with gentrification, they continue to get pushed out of their homes and the areas they grew up in. And really, for me, this project is personal in some ways, having had the opportunity to live in South Haven for a number of years in the mid-90s. It's where my wife and I lived together right after we got married. It's where our oldest child was born. I actually lived at the corner of Clinton and Indiana, just about 6 blocks north of the site for a number of years. So South Haven has a special place for us. So when Chris approached us about this project, that was an easy one to jump at. I remember the old Overton facility and running by this facility before, and you just looked at it like, something's got to change. And just kudos to the city of South Haven for what you've done on the south side. It's fun to go back and look and drive through and see all the progress you've made. And we're really excited to be part of this. As I mentioned before, South Haven is it's a beautiful town. I feel like we have a unique insight with Chris and his team having worked there. I've had the opportunity to live there and share with our team, a little bit about South Haven and the wonderful people and the open-mindedness and this great coastal town that's kind of this hidden gem between St. Joe and Holland. And this is just a wonderful opportunity, not only for us at HDJ, but we think the people of South Haven, as well as those that you're trying to attract. My wife and I were really those people you were trying to attract to the city a number of years ago. And I remember trying to find a place to live. And we got lucky on a snowy January afternoon that we met somebody that actually had a room for rent, which turned out to be a house that we could rent for a while. So it's just warm people, great people. But because it's this great coastal community, you're undergoing some challenges. And congratulations to you guys for addressing them head on. And that's making sure that the affordability remains in the city. Having a number of people buying second homes there just drives up the price, and then it's a fallout effect. And we see that in a number of towns all over the country. And we'd really love to be part of this solution for you. And with that, as I mentioned, Eric is our talent. So we thought Eric could kind of walk you through the Lake Sound Lofts and kind of share with you a little bit about our vision for this property.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. I don't know if you can bring up our drawings that we have.
I can do that.
I think it's our site plan is on page 11, I think.
Let me see if I can fit it better.
Zoom out a little bit.
That's not gonna work. All right, how's that?
That should work. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I'll just run through what kind of our initial thoughts. You know, this is kind of the result of our team's kind of analysis and thoughts for the site. We're currently proposing 110 units on the site. We currently have a combination of apartments and stacked flats at this point. That's of course flexible as we move forward. We have a 3-story building, like similar to the last proposal down at the southwest corner. You know, our thought being that's, you know, of the whole site, that's probably the corner that feels like the most dense product would work. It could provide a little bit of a gateway feel between the Van Buren trail that runs through there. And then we also have some 2-story stacked flat product around the rest of the site. Really wanting to try to fit in better with the neighborhood here. That's why we kind of went with the lower 2-story, you know, a smaller building. Most of these are, I think, around 8 or 12 units, so a little bit smaller scale. Again, just to kind of provide a better transition into the single family neighborhood to the northwest, the north, and the east there. Kind of the goal of the project that we talked about was, again, really trying to fit within the community with these 2-story buildings, and really, you know, providing a stacked flat, which does provide good visibility both from the front of the unit and the back of the unit. So you kind of, inside these units, you kind of have windows on where we have parking, and windows again on the backyard. So trying to provide some visibility into these kind of landscape buffers or setbacks that we have shown, as well as some visibility off of Indiana Avenue as well. You know, along with the setbacks, we've started to include some kind of a central green space in here. You can see, you know, with kind of a path that runs through east-west that kind of provides, again, a community connection through the site, you know, to the Van Buren Trail, to kind of the neighborhood to the east. We have kind of a little central park here planned. We purposely don't have a playground, or we'll plan a smaller playground, again, building on what Chris said earlier about, you know, try to utilize the park, the Elkenberg Park to the east, and helping to kind of transform that, you know, kind of knowing families in this development are going to use that park pretty heavily. So we can help to kind of further enhance that area as well. We're proposing some project amenities kind of in this 3-story apartment building that we have, figuring that's where we would locate, you know, some community spaces or lounge, you know, fitness center, dog spot, you know, bike storage, knowing that we're along this nice path, kind of located in the ground floor of this apartment building, you know, being able to access by all the residents of the property. We also have an outdoor kind of dog park space at the upper side, just knowing at the north side, this little weird part of the parcel, we figured makes more sense to have more of a green space up there than trying to locate some buildings up there. So yeah, our team, we spent a lot of time kind of discussing what we wanted to see, you know, in this project, and if we're awarded, we continue to work as a team with the city and our internal team. You know, as Phil said, we have a lot of experience with affordable housing and with the MSHDA process. If you know, Lori can speak to the financing side. But we do, as a team, we'll work closely with a developer, with the management company. We like to include them during our design process, just to make sure that, you know, what we are designing and proposing is a durable product that easy to maintain and keeps looking great for years to come. So, and again, we keep Lori involved in the project as well as we move through the design and the different stages and the different discussions, just to help keep us in line with what the financing goals are of the project, which she can roll into at this point.
All right, I think you all hear me?
Yep.
All right, so my name is Lori Pong. I am a financing consultant. I've worked on affordable housing type projects for more than 18 years, and I've done more than 100 of them in that amount of time, doing both development and asset management work. And as Eric said, part of my primary focus has really been working through the lending nuances that go with affordable housing projects and the various incentive packages that are out there to ensure that these are financed, and also maintain some of the restrictions that I think all of you are looking for based on what was in the RFQ. One other member of our team that's not with us this evening is also our management agent, and we're working with a group called American Preferred, who's out of Grand Rapids, and they're very integral in this entire design process as well. So we bring them in early on also to ensure that we're designing a property that isn't just pretty, it's also very functional long-term, it's very manageable long-term, because once, some of us on this call are sort of done with a project on the front end, they're going to be around long-term to make sure that those projects are staying leased up, they're well-maintained, and that we're good neighbors in your community. So we make sure we involve them very early on in that process as well. Unfortunately, they were not available to join us this evening, but they are involved in the project. So one of the questions that I wanted to address was, what is affordable housing, and really who's eligible to live in it? So traditionally, the focus on households for affordable has been for those folks that are making between 30 and 60% of the area median income. Recent program changes expanded that to go up to 80% of area median income. And to put some dollar amounts to that, more specifically, that covers households that are making up to $50,560 for this calendar year for a two-person household. So it's right in that range of the folks that I think you all are looking to house based on what was in the City of South Haven RFQ. Specifically, the RFQ noted there was a middle-class demographic at attainable prices. And middle class is generally defined as those in the 50 to 60% of median income range. Our target is that 74 of the 110 proposed apartments in this community would be in that 50 to 60% range, and an additional 16 of the apartments would be in the 80% AMI range. We would have an additional 20 units that are also market rate. So those rental units in that sort of 50 range and up, we'd have rents that are starting around $661 for a 1-bedroom and $791 for a 2-bedroom. So that kind of gives you the sense of where we're starting at. I'm also going to take a quick note to note for the gentleman who made the parking comment earlier. The drawing that is in front of you right now actually has 1.6 spaces per apartment. And I would also point out that 46 of our apartments are 1-bedrooms in this rendition. So they likely would only have one car. And while we had intended to have lots of green space, and I think we do, that does also leave us lots of snow space, unfortunately or fortunately at the same time. So I think we've accomplished the snow and the green simultaneously. So hopefully we're heading in the right direction from that standpoint. The other thing I want to point out is, how do we help ensure the affordability, and also who's living there specifically? Because I know part of the concern was the volume of households that are second homes in your neighborhoods. So by working through the financing programs that we're looking to utilize through the Michigan State Housing Development Authority, we are rent regulated and we are governed overall by Section 42 of the Internal Revenue Code. That affordability has to be maintained for a minimum of 30 years, and it's controlled via a recorded regulatory agreement. And it also controls not just how much we can charge people, it also controls how much we can renew them at. So we can't, move them in at a low rate and then do sort of a bait and switch a year down the road and suddenly do this huge rent increase. We're restricted there as well. So I think the value of using these regulated lending sources, it puts those longer term restrictions in place and helps take care of that side of it. So to us, one of the key points that we took away from the city's RFQ was to ensure affordability as well as availability to workforce folks in the middle income range. And our feeling is that the best way to ensure that is to really focus more on a rental project for the first project. Those regulatory restrictions from the finance sources are going to help ensure that the affordability for the local workforce is maintained. So as soon as product becomes available for home ownership, we don't have control anymore of who's moving into those homes. So I think it would put the issue of your concerns with the vacation home purchases right back on the table. Our thought is to make this more of a phase 2 project process, so that phase 1 is more of the rental rate units. Phase 2 could become more of home ownership based units, so that the rental units become a stepping stone to home ownership. It's also understand that there may be a nearby parcel that may be developed with more of a home ownership focus. So if that doesn't come to fruition, we certainly could adjust our site plan to include some home ownership options on one end of the parcel, while those households would still have some access to the apartment amenities. But if that project does come to fruition, that may be bringing enough mix of home ownership into the area that maybe we do want to retain this one as more of an affordable rental type focus. The other thing that I wanted to address was, again, that year-round residency versus seasonal. So right now, 90 of our 110 proposed apartments are available to folks at 80% AMI and below. That means, again, back to my math, we have households that are making no more than $50,560 for a double occupancy household. Our feeling is that it's pretty unlikely that folks in those income bands are likely going to be seeking out vacation home options, because there's something going to have a lack of discretionary income to do something like that with. We also looked into our Center Street project that Chris has previously developed in South Haven, which is an all market rate project. And all of the households in that project are year-round households. So our feeling is that rental households are going to be less attractive to those looking for that longer vacation home option. So I think that's going to help contain that control that ultimately was what we took away from that RFQ.
Thanks, Lori. I think we probably, is there anything, unless there's anything we missed, I think we should open it up for questions.
Yeah, so what I'll do here is you'll be unmuted to answer any questions. I see Steve Schlock's got his hand up, so I'll go with him first. But just keep in mind, it's 6:53 now. We'll have to wrap this up by 7:15. So I'll get Steve started right now.
Thank you. I have 2 questions I'd like to hear your answers on. And one is, what kind of process do you use for resolving conflicts within the surrounding neighborhood if they don't like the plans you have forward, and your negotiating process and your experience with that?
Good question, Steve. And certainly that's, those are things that come up, and usually we try to have an open conversation with that, whether we're creating a charrette, which would be just sort of a public meeting someplace, and hopefully we can have face-to-face meetings in the near future. But the goal is to try to get input and do our very best to meet everyone's needs, including the cities, of course. And you can't always make everyone 100% happy, but if we can get everybody mostly happy, that's a good outcome.
And my second question would be, if the project happens to get scaled back, let's say by 50%, are you still interested in doing the project?
We would be. The economics get a little tougher, and Lori can maybe comment on that, but we were trying to actually scale back the project a little bit to begin with, but because we just felt like fewer units was more appropriate for this location and more green space. So we're hopeful that the look is a little more agreeable to the neighborhood to begin with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so do I see Mike? Do you have? Okay, I see Mike's got his hand up. Mike, if you want to go ahead.
Yes. First of all, one of the things I really found helpful, and I appreciate your proposal, was the rate table. That really was specific and really gave me a good picture of what you are intending. Back to Lori's points, and Lori, you took away some of my angst over the idea of, we're kind of married to this home ownership thing. It's a neighborhood that right now doesn't have the options for people to buy a home in that area, and we were kind of looking at that. But I thought your explanation was good and helped to assuage any kind of concerns I had there. With one question for you though, in those projects that you have realized the way to keep it affordable is to do rental, what's been the transition of those families? Are they long-term renters? Are they there short-term? Does it really build a neighborhood, or are they transient?
It's honestly, it's a little bit of both. To some extent, it does depend on what our overall economy is doing at the same time. You know, when the economy is very favorable for home ownership, we certainly see it as more of a stepping stone. When the economy is less favorable to home ownership, people do tend to stay longer. You know, basic economics, obviously. So we really do see some of both. And, you know, there are some folks that really do prefer to rent because they simply don't want to deal with the burdens of home ownership. And that certainly has been a trend in the last couple of years, is folks are going back to the rental concept and farther away from the home ownership concept.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like Chris has their hand up, so I'll unmute you, Chris. And then I see Joe Reeser after that. So Chris, go ahead. If you can get yourself unmuted.
Okay.
Chris, I think you're still muted.
Am I unmuted now?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Back to your last point about trends. I wanted to ask this to the last developer too. What do you see in the post-COVID housing market, both in type and location of housing that people want?
Or you want to tackle that one?
I can try, yes. I would say we're still honestly sorting that out. I mean, we're all obviously negotiating COVID together, and what does that look like? We certainly aren't seeing folks getting together as much as they used to in the past, which is a bit of a challenge because we design with the intention of bringing people out of their apartments and gathering. So obviously gatherings are a little bit harder at the moment, but we're still going to design with the intention that COVID is not going to be with us forever, and that hopefully in 6 to 12 months from now, it's going to settle itself down and we're going to be able to get back to some sort of life as normal. So having those gathering spaces is certainly going to be very critical. I think the biggest trend I've seen as a result of that is some developers that I work with are starting to focus a little bit more on making sure the amenities of the apartments are better, making sure there's sort of some co-work space that folks can get out of their apartment and go work on site, because so many of us are no longer going to offices. And I think post-COVID, I think a lot of us think that going to offices is going to become something of the past. But that doesn't mean you really want to sit in your apartment all the time working either. So being able to sort of take that co-work space concept and translate that into some of our common areas is probably the biggest trend that I'm seeing right now, is we're all trying to maneuver our way through that process.
Okay. Looks like I've got Joe Reeser. Did you have your hand up? Okay, go ahead, Joe.
I want to compliment you on your projections for the cost of renting an apartment. You said $661 for a 1-bedroom and $700 for a 2-bedroom, I believe. And according to Ryan, some time ago, my notes I have here, someone making $25,900 can afford $650 a month, so they can get into an apartment very easily, and that's good for the young professional and the teachers we've talked about that normally can't live here. But like Michael, I am concerned about home ownership because that's how people acquire wealth. And you really haven't talked about, other than you said the apartments are the first phase, which I agree, because you could probably fill those up quickly because we have a lot of seniors that want an apartment and we have a lot of young millennials that want an apartment. But where do you see the prices coming in for homes? And can you tell me, based on your drawing and the cost you projected, because you put all that in there, what would be the cost per square foot that you would project before the cost of land and infrastructure?
Joe, are you asking pertaining to a for sale product?
Yeah, I'm sorry, for home ownership.
Okay, so Lori mentioned this and she can expand on it as well. We're actually working with a developer due south of this parcel who's looking at doing either a duplex or a fourplex style town for sale product. And so we didn't think it appropriate, number one, to compete with that because we thought the two could work well together. And I think what Lori was indicating is this product creates a great stepping stone to get to that next level. Lori, I don't know if you want to add any more to that.
No, I think that's really the point. I mean, if that other project does come to fruition and that is home ownership based, especially if it's a home ownership based, it's something more dense than single family homes, I guess I would be hesitant to have that parcel and this parcel both be home ownership and higher density, because that's bringing a lot more traffic and a lot more households into still a fairly small neighborhood overall. So I think if that one really does go, then I think us focusing more on rental and maybe even scaling down a little bit makes more sense. I would say if that one doesn't go, certainly there's ways we could take, you know, the units that we're looking at and change to where the stacked flat buildings are. You know, could we do a 2-story townhome product instead and convert those into something we could sell? Sure, I mean, we could take a look at that, but I think it's a little premature to fully answer that, not knowing what that other site is doing at the moment.
I'm confused now. The other site, this is all one site, the Overton site, and you've got a drawing, and I'm looking right at it, and you've got homes all around the site. Are you suggesting that all of them at this point be rentals?
On the Overton site, yes, we're suggesting right now that all be rentals. Chris,
Okay.
can you clarify, please, what other site we're talking about?
It's due south right across the street. The developer's actually was a partner in our Center Street project, and so he's looking at doing like I said, either a duplex or fourplex for sale product. And again, to Lori's point, you know, if it makes more sense that a chunk of this site has a for sale product, we can look at that. It just gets more difficult to control that. We can't put any restrictions on who buys that and when it gets sold again and how long they're there. Whereas the rental product allows us to control that affordability for 30 years.
Okay. It looks like I have Joe Wilkins wants to go. I'll meet you, Joe. And you can ask your question.
Thank you, Kate. Just 2 questions, real quick. I think, I guess what I envisioned was more of a making this project where a first-year teacher could afford a home versus looking at the rentals. I think I heard someone say something about in the 650, 700 range, that would be for the first-year teacher. But, you know, I think we're missing that, you know, that we say we're missing the missing middle where teachers and essential workers are falling into. I think it should be the vision of the project would be to make it available for a first-year teacher to be able to afford a home. That's my my first point. And my other point is I heard Steve, I believe Steve Slott, Councilman Slott, Steve, he asked the same question to both companies, and I agree. How would you address some of these issues with different neighbors? And I think that's an important question. But you know, after he asked it the second time, what came to mind was that the Overton and National Motors and Everett Piano Factory, for years, they offered a way of people in Ward 1, a lot of the Black community, a lot of the Black population is to provide a way to take care of their family. For years, those factories rendered an opportunity to take care of your family. But we also endured, those that lived on the south side of Ward 1, we endured the pollution and everything else that came with having a factory. Remember now, the factories weren't put in the other parts of town. The factories were put in our neighborhood. They were in our backyards. We endured all the fallout that came from those factories, from National Motors, which was a very nasty plant. My father worked there for 30 years. He'd go in that factory, looking one way and come out, you wouldn't even recognize him when he got out at 3:30. So we endured a lot of that. So I understand that trying to accommodate and hear the voices of all the other residents around, I totally get that. But I also want you to keep in mind those that live in the south side of Ward 1, we had to endure all that. Now that the land is flat, I just want to make sure that we don't miss their voices or don't hear their voices. I think they should have a lot to say and what goes on that property. That's my only take on that.
All right, so I want to jump in there with two thoughts, and I do hear you. So my first thought, going back to wanting to make sure those first-year teachers have an affordable home to be in, I think the other point that goes with that, and sort of goes back to my stepping stone concept, is folks who are in first-year positions likely don't have sufficient savings to do a down payment on a house yet either. So I think they're going to end up in rental situations, even though it may not be our first choice for them. They're simply not going to be able to get into that home right out of the gate because they don't have those down payments in hand yet. So, you know, I think this still goes back to it's a good stepping stone concept. And generally, folks really don't live in rental housing for 20, 30, 40 years. I mean, it is a stepping stone and they move on. The other thought I have, because several of you have made the comment about, you know, how do you listen to the neighborhood groups? One side note, I guess I would give all of you as a group, the city of Grand Rapids actually has a plan that they follow specific to that. So they have designated neighborhood groups that when developers go to develop within the city of Grand Rapids limits, we are required to go meet with those neighborhood groups before we can come into planning and zoning and city council meetings and try to make sure we iron out all the differences prior to getting in front of a city planner or a city commission. So that maybe there's a model in that you all might want to go take a look at, so that whoever you do select after tonight, you can follow that type of model with whoever you choose and make sure that you have that mechanism to be heard.
Yeah, my only rebuttal to that is that on an average, I just got this information. A first-time teacher is coming in around 35, 42,000, depending on where you're at. And that's with a bachelor degree, one with a master's degree coming in around 47,000. I can tell you that a lot of these teachers are looking, whether, and in our area, keep in mind, we don't have a lot of first-time teachers because it's hard to attract teachers. So keep in mind, when I say that, I'm just using that as an example, but if we want to deal with some hardcore facts in our area with South Haven School, we don't have a lot of first-time teachers because it's hard to attract new teachers to this area simply because there's no affordable housing. We don't.
And that's why we're here.
But what you're saying is that you're ruling out that these people that come into this area, I worked in Palisades for years, and engineers were leaving South Haven right out of school, looking for homes right out of school. And they, even though they worked in Covert at the nuclear plant, they were going all the way to St. Joe, Kalamazoo, Lake Shore, because they couldn't get a affordable house, find affordable housing here in South Haven. So,
right. Joe, I hate to cut you off, but we've only got maybe another
I'm sorry.
6 more minutes. We're gonna have Chris, I think, had her hand up, so I'm gonna have her, and then I see Tim Stegman.
And Serafina as well.
And Serafina, yep.
The property to the south was the National Motors Everett Piano Factory, and well, anyway, that parcel, the National Motors parcel, I was on the Brownfield Authority, has only been cleaned up to industrial standards, not residential standards. And it seems to me that we are taking the wrong direction by putting single family homes there.
Chris, I'm going to stop you right there. We need to really focus on the developers here on this parcel. Do you have a question that's germane to the Overton parcel, not the development to the south?
Well, I've got lots of questions, but I think it's a bit of disingenuous to focus on their focus. They brought up the properties to the south, not me. And I think it's a bit disingenuous to have submitted this plan without disclosing their interest in that property.
Chris, we have no interest in that property. We're not, I just know the developer that's planning a project there. So there wasn't any connection. I was merely just trying to point out there's more happening in this area. I didn't mean to
well, I agree there's more happening in this area and that this all ought to be considered.
Well, and
that's also under a PUD with that has a transition to higher density than just single family there. So.
I want to acknowledge real quickly in some of the conversations leading up to this, as I spoke with each of the development teams, all of them had questions. And one of the particular questions was, is home ownership a requirement on the site? And one of the things that we talked about in the process of developing this concept plan was that we wanted this neighborhood to have plenty of opportunities for home ownership, and that it was a priority for the site, but it wasn't a must-have. And so if there was an opportunity to ensure that there was an adequate amount of home ownership in the neighborhood, while also ensuring an adequate amount of affordability for this particular site, that would be a plan that this committee would look at and that the city council would take seriously. Now, it doesn't mean that that plan is a guarantee, but I do want to be very clear that this project will not happen in a vacuum. It will happen in the context of the broader neighborhood. And so it's relevant to think about those things. Lori, real quickly, one of the things I know that you have a lot of experience with is dealing with property management firms that support their tenants in one way or another. Have you had experience with a property management firm that has supported their tenants in a way that allows them to save for down payment for when they're ready to transition out of rental and into a home ownership product?
I haven't seen it happen, but I have several developers that are actively discussing making that happen right now. So I do think there is something to that. Unfortunately, our financing programs don't necessarily support that. So it's something we would have to do in addition to. You know, we can't say charge them an extra $100 in rent and help them set it aside and save it. That's not something we're allowed to do. But I do think it's becoming a way of the future. But, you know, at the same time, if you're running a rental housing project and that's what you own, you know, there is an element of you're obviously putting yourselves, not out of business, but, you know, you're taking your resident base away if you are helping them. But at the same time, I have developers, and this group being one of them, that I think would like to see folks have that step up at the same time.
And that's the goal of the affordable housing, is you provide a rent structure that allows them to save, you know, over time, so they can make that next step.
Okay, it looks like we have two questions to kind of wrap this up. I got Tim Stegman and Serafina. Tim, if you want to unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for your presentation this evening, and thank you, Lori, for giving me the 1.6 number ahead of time. I appreciate that. My only question, and I know, you know, we're a long way from final design, but let's just say the design you have was approved pretty much as is. How many phases are you looking at, and what kind of build out time are you looking at for all of that combined?
Good question, Tim. Our goal would be essentially it's one phase, but there would be certainly a phased opening as you work through the project. I think realistically, we're probably starting this once we get through the approval process, both with South Haven and Mishta. You know, if we're breaking ground next summer, we're turning over product the following spring, and then fully built out by probably approaching that summer, that fall. So a 12 to 16-month build.
Okay. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Tim. And then Serafina, I'm going to try to unmute you. If you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
All right, hi, I'm Serafina. I'm 26 years old. I've lived in South Haven since I was 14. But anyways, I'll be really quick. But I've worked at a salon for 6 years, and I can tell you that with the girls there, there's between 20 to, the age group 20 to 30. And I know that a lot of the girls there were looking for affordable housing to buy. But I am just really curious, since I know that a lot of voices are wanting single family detached homes to buy. What is the price point for that? My house that I bought, I was 21 with my husband. How much, what's the price point there for like a 1,100 square foot house, do you think?
Well, if we went with a portion of this project that had single family homes and it was more of a smaller format style, I mean, you're certainly something that could be provided in the sub 200 number. You know, if we can get to 150, that's probably aggressive. But if we were to pivot and make part of this project single family, that would probably be the market we'd be trying to serve.
Okay, so you're saying between like 150 to 200,000?
Yeah, for an entry level. Yes.
Perfect. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, it looks like we are right at 7:15, so I'm going to move on to the next developer. Thank you very much to Vina Clausen and the crew from HDK, and we very much appreciate your presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, so I think the next one is going to be Habitat, and I think that's Jeff Head. So let me get him on here and to get him set up. So if you just bear with me for just a quick minute.
The quick note for the committee is, as Kate does that, I really appreciate those of you that are asking some of the same questions to each development group. It's really nice to have some of that consistency, and it gives us all an opportunity to hear the different responses from each group. So I encourage you to keep that up. And also great dialogue. I appreciate everybody's contributions and personal experiences. Really appreciate the group stepping up and getting engaged in this conversation.
So I have made Jeff Head a co-host. So Jeff, if you can unmute yourself, let's get you started and let me know if there's anybody else that you'll need me to make as a co-host.
Thank you, Kate. And thank you everyone for having us here tonight. We're looking forward to having a good conversation, presentation. If I could ask you to unmute C. Hamer. He's a colleague of mine. He's actually my boss at Habitat. And we have Pat Saldana Natke.
Okay.
And we have Isaac. Isaac, are you on? Isaac Norris is on as well. Excellent.
Okay. All right.
Pat, I don't see Pat.
I'm getting her right now.
Okay.
All right. I think I have everyone asked to be co-hosts, and I'm gonna ask them to unmute themselves. So you can take it away.
Great. Thank you again. So what I'd like to do is I'll just give a quick introduction of the team, and then I've got a bit of a PowerPoint presentation I was going to take you through that includes the designs, a little bit on background on our architecture team, and then a little bit about kind of our approach and some price point information and so forth. So with that, I'd just like to again introduce Charlton Hamer from the Habitat Company, Senior Vice President. Habitat is an integrated developer property management company. We've been in business since 1971, and Charlton oversees both the development and the property management side for us. We have Isaac Norris from IVNA Architecture in Grand Rapids, and we have Pat Saldana Natke. She's not showing up on my view, but I'm sure she's here, and she's an architect from Urban Works here in Chicago. So with that, if you don't mind, Kate, I'm going to share my screen.
Yep.
Great. Start things out a little bit here. So as I said, we're the Habitat Company. We're a 50-year-old company. We're based in Chicago. We started in Michigan. We have a lot of Michigan roots on our team. Not the least is our founder, Dan Levin, who is, I'll mention in a second. I also have Zach Zahler, who grew up in South Haven and may know a couple of you. He's he's here tonight as well. And we thought that if we had some local specific question, he would join. He's a colleague of mine in the development side of Habitat. We're a large company. We have about 800 employees. We manage over 20,000 units, and we've developed 17,000 units in the years that we've been developer. But one of the things I wanted to share at the outset was kind of our North Star as a company in our approach to development. And it comes from our chairman. He said this years ago, but it's really something that our company holds dear. And he said, no project is only an investment in real estate. It's an investment in the future of the community and the lives of the people who live and work there. And I think that's really lays out how we approach development, and particularly my group, which specializes in affordable and mixed income housing. You know, we've been doing mixed income housing for, I've been at Habitat for over 20 years. We specialize in public-private partnerships. We're committed to the kind of collaborative design that I hear the neighbors asking about. And we're also committed to ensuring the long-term affordability for this Overton site. Our team, we're experienced community development professionals. Pat Nackey is one of the best I've ever worked with in doing community outreach and really finding win-win solutions for neighbors and for sometimes interests that are a little bit in tension between the city, a developer, and communities. And you know, she's an award-winning architect. Habitat, we've proven over the 50 years that we've been in business that we have an ability to deliver the necessary resources to do tough developments. And we're really here because we're committed to working with you, City of South Haven, and the neighbors of the Overton site. With that, I'd like to just ask Pat to walk us through some of the design ideas and concepts that we're looking at for this site.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So on my screen, it's still the first page. There we go. Okay. Is everyone able to see the screen?
Pat, are you seeing the page that has the 3 images?
No,
It's not clear.
I'm sorry. Let me just go back and make sure I'm sharing the right screen. I apologize.
But maybe while he's doing that, I'll speak a little bit about us. So thanks, Jeff. So I am the firm owner of Urban Works, and I own the firm. I've had it for 27 years. And thank you to Jeff for all the accolades. I am so excited to be on this team because we've been working with the Habitat Company for almost 20 years. My office is very focused in doing housing, especially affordable housing. We've done over 3,500 units of affordable housing. And the project that's shown here on the slide is one of our projects that recently won the American Institute of Architects Distinguished Building Award. And I say that because it's up against many other big mega projects. And we're so proud that we can do projects that are affordable and they also look great. One of the jurors said that it changed the perception of what affordable housing was. This one is in Melrose Park, Illinois, and it is housing that has a preference for veterans. This next one is Lake in the Hills, which is in Illinois, and it's a large development, also affordable housing that captures the spirit of the neighborhood, and it's for first responders, for teachers, firemen, et cetera. And we always put in green space and all kind of amenities. We are also technical advisors for the Enterprise Green Communities. We're very focused on sustainability. This project is one we're super excited about in Grand Rapids, and it's a 9-acre site where we did community engagement with IVNA, Isaac, who's on the team also. And we had a fabulous time getting to meet all of the residents. We treat everyone equally, and we love to hear the commentary. We did a preference surveys with the community to ask them what they preferred, what they liked. That bottom left picture is one of our community engagement where we presented the project and we were able to meet everyone. It really is one of our strengths, and it's about quality work and quality design, especially when it's for developers like the Habitat Company that really care about what they put together. This one is going to be a national green building standards, also for sustainability. So we've done work in Illinois, Indiana, Virginia, and North Carolina. I'll go through, I think if you can go to the next.
If the next slide is actually on Isaac, and if you could just introduce.
Yeah, absolutely.
About the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been working with IVNA, with Isaac, on the Grand Rapids project. It's been a great collaboration. As you know, people need to like to work with each other, and we've had a great time. Not only is he talented, but he also has done a lot of work in Michigan that we appreciated. So Isaac, if you could take it from here.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Pat. Yes, my name is Isaac Norris, and I am a architect from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I've run a small architectural firm in the central city core of Grand Rapids for 25 years. Probably over the past 10 years, we've been blessed with the opportunity to complete quite a few housing projects, light tech projects, neighborhood NSP projects, and some MISTA projects. And what you're looking at there, this is a LEED certified project that we just completed. And this is 36 units of housing for a group called Link. They're a developer here in Grand Rapids. We've had a very extensive relationship with them over the past probably 10 years. And we've completed over 200 units of housing with them. And this is just completed. This is called Garfield Loft Apartments, and there are 2 and 3 bedroom units. Across the street is this, I kind of call it the sister project to Garfield Lofts, and that is on the left-hand side. That is 26 units of light tech housing. It's under construction right now, and it's probably about 80–85% complete. For the Grand Rapids Housing Commission, this is an 80-unit complex that we've designed. I'm sorry, 50-unit complex for the Grand Rapids Housing Commission. This year was also completed for Link, and these are, this is part of a scattered site project for NSP, and these are townhomes.
Thanks, Isaac. So what I'm going to do is just give a little bit of a lead into the design concepts that we've put together. And I really want to emphasize, as others have, that these are design concepts. What we would intend to do is work with the city, with the neighbors, and with other stakeholders on finding a way to come up with a project that fits the needs for everyone involved. And so what we're looking at, we take from you. You all did a tremendous amount of work over the last several years in trying to come up with what makes sense for the city of South Haven. You had your master plan, you've done a housing analysis, and you've hired Ryan from Housing Next. It's a great amount of preparations, especially for a town of your size. And it's really helpful for us to see what you've done as we get into the analysis and design concepts. What we've taken away is that South Haven residents need housing, especially the teachers, public safety workers, working families, and seniors. We recognize from the conversation today and from the work that you've done, there's a need for long-term affordability, both in the rental and the for sale markets. What our expectations going in is to create a partnership with the city of South Haven. We would create a mixed income development that includes affordable for low income people and working families. We expect to have thorough community input. We'll provide thoughtful planning, quality housing. If the housing is going to be for year-round residents, we would expect to go through a PUD process to come up with a program that works and creates a zoning plan that's appropriate to the development, and we're committed to preserving long-term affordability. I'm going to pass back to Pat and kind of walk through some of the inspirations and the site concepts that we've put together.
Great, thank you. So, we love South Haven. I've been there very often, ate at Clementine's. It is such a wonderful community, and what our goal is to improve that community. That landscape that's shown are ideas and inspiration of what we can do to the Van Buren Trail. Here are some ideas of some of the townhomes and stacked flats, the kind of projects that we can do. Here again are some of our own projects, some of which I've shown previously. On our team is also JB Dennison Design. They are fabulous interior designers, and that's important for projects to make sure that everything is picked properly. We did a quick study, and I know that we're short on time, but that shows our study of how do we connect the neighborhood to the green space. How do we make sure that there is enough walkability, to make sure that there is outdoor green space and a play lot. Our parking, it was asked previously, it's 1.4 spots for 1 bedroom and 2 spaces for the 2 to 3 bedroom. That connectivity of that north and south lots are extremely important, and always putting density where there is other density. The factory lofts is an amazing project. Here is our concept where we connect. What is shown there is the type A, the units that go east-west, connecting that to the trail, doing some of the stacked flats, which are the yellow, the type B units. Some below on the type C, which are the apartments, and of course the L-shaped building, which we have the community room, community space right at the corner, so that could really be engaging the entire neighborhood. We see this as really being a project that is going to enhance the entire neighborhood. Next, there is a diagram, which is an axonometric. This is only massing, but just to give you an idea of the kind of project it could be. We have in our staff, our associate principal is a certified planner, and that helps with making sure that all the planning is done properly. And, as Jeff mentioned, we're proud of the fact that we have almost 40 design awards that we have won for our work. Thanks.
Thanks, Pat. So I'm going to take back and kind of walk through some details, but I want to leave time for questions, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. This probably gives the purpose of this slide here is to give a picture of who are we trying to serve here in South Haven. Who is the missing middle? That's who is identified in your master plan as having a hard time finding housing. And so this is an analysis that I didn't do this analysis. I'm just taking it from MSHDA, the Michigan State Housing Development Agency. And this is an analysis that they do. MSHDA looks at the incomes of people and says that the people should not be spending more than 30% of their income on housing. And so this is showing in Van Buren County how much people are making and what that means in terms of a housing payment. People who are, you heard a little bit in the previous presentation, talk of people at 60% of median and 40% of median income. And so that's saying, this is, I'm showing for a family of 4. And at the median income in Van Buren County is $79,000. And 30% of that income is $1,975 as a housing payment, all in. Taxes, insurance, any homeowners fees, and so forth. And then at the lower end, 40% for a family of 4 is somebody earning $30,000. So again, here in this lower half, we're really talking about entry-level public employees, whether it's the teachers, whether it's the firemen, whether it's public employees and people who work in the trades. So there's a question that comes up a lot. Why isn't there affordable rental housing that's created in the marketplace? Well, it's expensive to build housing, and especially if it's managed housing, multifamily housing. And if you look around at new housing that's built in your region, you'll find that it costs about $2 a square foot or more to build and operate rental housing. A new rent, so a 1,000 square foot apartment, that's over $2,000. A 1,500 square foot apartment, over $3,000. Well, I think that if we go back and look at the incomes, most people are not able to afford that kind of income for rental housing. And so what we look at is trying to do a public-private partnership with MISTA and and the local agencies to do privately financed, privately owned housing, professionally managed by Habitat, designed for working families, with the tenants are screened and the long-term affordability is ensured. What that looks like on the rental side is for somebody who has an income of 40 that's 40% of AMI, which we just saw a minute ago, is roughly 25 to 30,000 depending on the size of the family. That's a one-bedroom apartment at 425, three-bedroom apartment at 575. Somebody at 60% of median, I'm just going to skip over to move faster. That's $600, a little over $600 for a one-bedroom and $915 for a three-bedroom. And the way that these apartments are regulated is the rents are sort of targeted to different income groups. So we may have a rent roll that has 3 different prices for a one-bedroom unit based on the income of the individual. On for sale housing, there's similar challenges. Why is it there for sale housing in the market that meets the needs of local people? Well, I think a lot of people are familiar with the challenges in South Haven: vacation homes, short-term rentals, infrastructure and zoning costs. And the owners are coming from Chicago and Detroit and Indiana and not from South Haven. And it drives up the prices. And so, you know, we would like to work with South Haven, with the community residents, and find a way to produce a for sale product that meets the needs of the community. But more than that, I think we're really looking for an overall program that meets the needs of the community, not just a for sale, not just a rental. And really, I think that the previous developer had a good point that the solution, and Ryan said this as well, the solution is for the neighborhood. This site is a major component of the neighborhood, but focusing all of the for sale energy on this site as opposed to a site to the south, I think it needs to be a comprehensive look. And so where I would leave it is really with that, to take some questions and hear your thoughts on the presentation that we've made.
All right, we can do that.
Thank
If
you.
you want to stop your screen or stop sharing, I'll go back here and see if we have any let me see. There we go. It looks like Steve's got his hand up. Steve, I'll take your question first.
I'm going to stick to my game plan. I think Patricia kind of answered some of this during her presentation, but maybe elaborate on what processes you use to resolving conflicts in the neighborhood, within the surrounding neighborhood, and how do you try and resolve those conflicts?
Right,
Well,
absolutely, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Jeff, if you want to go.
No, I was going to really just piggyback on what Pat said, and the plan is that we sit down in the front end and we hear what people have to say about their goals, and I think that Pat is really a great facilitator at sort of taking what people's ideas are in somewhat of the abstract and bringing them into a visual context that helps people kind of clarify what they mean and what the different goals and objectives mean in terms of a built environment. And maybe you could say a little more about that, Pat, while I turn on a light as it's gotten dark during the conversation.
Yeah, you're in the dark there. So yeah, and the goal really with all projects is to be honest and transparent. It's for everyone to win-win. So we've had community meetings, we've had preference studies. We actually have even done things for some universities where there's many different student groups, so all kinds of things. It could also, now that it's COVID, what we've transferred to is everything virtual, where there can be voting online. It can be where, the city of South Haven can keep updates of the progress of the design so that everything is transparent as possible. Really, the Habitat Company has been amazing with that. Jeff Head and myself, we worked on one project that was a very large project, over 60 acres, where for 10 years, other design teams and developers weren't able to get a master plan, and we were able to get a master plan completed by, frankly, just you treat people the way you'd like to be treated, and that's the most important thing, and that everyone's voice is heard, and that we move forward together.
Thank you. And then my last question is,
Steve, hi, this is Charlton Hamer. I just want to add on to that, and I want to wrap it up with under an umbrella. So a project like this can't be and should not be done and conducted in a vacuum. This is a community development endeavor, and we're respectful of everybody who's in the community and who will be adjacent to the development. It's two-sided. It's one, being able to hear community concerns, community's goals, their objectives, but also from our standpoint is also to ensure that the project is a success. And part of the reason and part of getting to a project that is successful is trying to incorporate as much as we can of all the goals and objectives of the community. Of course, not everybody is going to be happy, but we'd like to ensure the success of the project itself, and of course, ensure the success that the community feels about the project as well.
thank you. And my last question would be, obviously you guys put forth 150 units, which is the most aggressive of all three plans. If this project happens to get scaled down by, say, 50%, are you still interested in the project? And thank you for your answers.
Ask that. Yeah, we're still interested in it, and I think that the reason that we put we increased the units a little bit was really to try and create some balance between the potential for rental and for sale. It created a lot of flexibility in terms of what kind of building types. But again, as I said at the beginning, as Ryan has said in his comments to you as well, this is a starting point. We're not telling you that it has to be 150 units or we're walking away. We're just kind of trying to show what some possibilities are, and we were responding in large part to the development concept that you all gave to us in the RFQ.
Okay. I think I see Mike Neese. Did you have your hand up?
I think my question's been answered, Kate, but just very quickly back to Jeff. Jeff, if there was some kind of target, and obviously you won't be held to this, but in your thinking, what was that mix of owned to rent? Is there a percentage you had in mind?
So if I would go back to the site plan in the way that the first presentation did, and we were kind of thinking, the yellow buildings, I think that they were the type A and B buildings that are the townhouses and flats. That area is really the for sale area. It's a byproduct of density, but I would say that we're probably thinking in that 25 to 30% range. And again, it's a function of what else is going on to the south, and a little deeper dive in the community goals.
Just to follow up on that, Jeff, maybe for some of the other folks on your team, in your experience, and I do appreciate that you have a separate division just focused on affordability, but in the projects that you have done, have you focused at all on ownership as well as rental? Has that been a big thing?
We've done a number of ownership projects over the years. We tend to focus on rental. Our company is a, we build and manage apartment buildings of various sizes, but we've done, number of projects with for sale over the years. And we're very comfortable with.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and just quickly on that question, we serve in various different disciplines. I think Jeff talked about it before, and I just really wanted to highlight it. That's from high-end rental to condominiums, which we've both developed and we now manage, and affordable housing. And affordable housing under the guise of not only what you may see as traditional affordable housing, where you have subsidy and developed with a LIHTC equity, but also public housing as well. We've taken those best practices both from the development side and also the management side, and try to incorporate them into our development.
I would just add one other thing, Michael, and I think there's a good opportunity to reintroduce Zach Zahler. Zach's got a tremendous amount of experience in
sure.
Developing on the market rate side. You want to just say a couple of words about that, Zach?
Sure. You know, in this community, you know, I grew up here, went to high school here, graduated in 1998. You know, the for sale product would, you know, obviously be very welcomed. You know, I was looking across the listings that are out there right now, and you know, it's really tough for you to find anything under $200,000. I know 20 years ago when my mom was a single mother, she bought a house for $120,000. You're not going to find that anymore. And she was a post office worker for 25 years. Right. So, you know, we definitely see a need in it. It's just, you know, what can we build it for and deliver it at a realistic, affordable price for, you know, the community members that need this type of home ownership.
I appreciate those comments, Zach, and you probably know a lot of these people. I mean, let's not forget too, the missing middle is like a bell curve, right? Yeah. We have some at the right side of the bell curve. We're losing an awful lot of young professionals that work at Albemarle, engineers. We're not talking starting teachers, but we're finding them moving to Saugatuck and Douglas because they can't find affordable housing in South Haven. So
I have friends
you know,
that work there that have bought specifically in Saugatuck. So I know exactly what you're talking about, Michael.
And I'm talking long-term residents, second generation South Haven people that have had to move out. So keep that in mind as well. Thanks.
Do I see any other questions out there from the, oh, it looks like Tim, I see one from you. Let me get you, I see Joe Reeser, so you'll be second. So Tim, go ahead, if I can get you to unmute.
Okay, thank you. And thank you everybody for your presentation this evening. And I had the question of parking answered, and just to reaffirm, it was 1.4 for 1 bedroom and 2 for 2 bedroom, correct?
And 2 spaces for the 2 and 3 bedroom units.
2 and 3 bedroom, okay. So I asked the same question I've asked everybody else. If obviously this is a work in process, we don't have a finalized plan, we're a long way from it. But if the plan, the concept plan you have was approved today, is it phased, or what's the build out time for what you're proposing?
Oops, Jeff, you're muted.
There we go. Sorry about that. I think that we would be looking to do the rental in a single phase. And I think that the previous respondent had a reasonable timeline. I mean, I would say honestly, probably a little bit aggressive, to be honest. We have some conversations that we would need to have with you all to get to a plan that can be approved. And there's design work and there's financing work, especially with MSHDA. It takes a bit of time, but I think that a timeline that's targeting, you know, sometime next summer would be an appropriate timeline to be looking at. But that requires a lot of things going, you know, pretty smooth. It requires a lot of assistance from South Haven in getting through the zoning and permit processes. But I think that getting in line with MSHDA for the financing, that's going to be the real timeline that drives the process. You know, a for sale product could go more quickly, and I think that that's something that we could look at as part of, you know, really sorting out what the plan's going to end up looking like.
And just so everybody knows, the reason I've been asking that question to everyone is I'm trying to get an idea of how aggressive of a construction schedule, once we're through the approval processes, what kind of construction crews are showing up? Are we light, or do you guys go heavy? You know, that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay, well, I think the construction process we can speak to pretty well. I think call it 100 units, give or take whatever it is. That's probably a 12 to 15 month process. I think that we can put a pretty tight frame around that. I would say probably less than 15 months from breaking ground.
Very good. Thank you.
And I think, as the previous person said, it's not 15 months until the first person moves in. The first units would start to come online probably about nine or 10 months after breaking ground.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. And Joe Reister, I think it's your turn. Go ahead, Joe.
Thanks. You probably heard, the three of you heard, that home ownership in South Haven is really one of our goals for this Overton site. We need young people, young professionals, young people getting out of high school, working when they're prepared and when they can to be able to buy a home, and they can't right now, and we're looking to affordable housing at this site to do it. So here's my question. It appears from everyone, and a little bit of research I did prior to tonight, that rentals are easier, especially for young professionals and young people to get into. Are you considering, or can you consider, taking any of the townhouses and stacked homes that would be good to have home ownership and make them rental, but rental to own? Have you dealt with that, where people go in for a year or two, rent, acquire some money, then are able to put a down payment, literally buy what they've been renting? Is that a possibility? And then my second question is, would you be open to South Haven, after you do the rentals, that we have our own organization here that would manage the rentals?
So two great questions, Joe. So let me start with the first question about the rent to own component. I think that we would look at that along the same way as we would look at the for sale. So I don't think that, so the affordable rental that we're talking about is financed in a way that it's required to stay in place for a 30-year period. Now, that may seem like a long time, but I think it's a good thing for the city of South Haven, because it's guaranteeing the affordability during that period, that all of the units are staying affordable to those rental incomes, that levels that we talked about early on in our conversation. In terms of the property management, I would say that would be a hard one for us, and I'll tell you the reason why. It's that the rules and regulations for the leasing and management and overall operation for tax credit housing is a complicated process. It's something that we have a special division that oversees both the management and compliance on. I let Charlton maybe talk a little bit more about that, because it's really a specialized field.
Yeah, it's a key part of our business, and it's one where, again, I go back to it's one where we ensure the success of the development itself. Not only from a standpoint of the affordable units or the affordable component, but the market rate units as well. They are really two different ways of working in regards to the units themselves. And so when you're bringing them together under one development, you've got to have this seamless process of communication, whether you're looking at the leasing for the market rate units, and you want to be on point as far as the values of those rents, but also too, primarily on the affordable side, there are a number of regulatory issues, compliance concerns, whether it comes from the federal government, the state, and it could be imposed by the municipality itself, that we want to make sure that we remain in compliance, particularly with these programs. We've talked about low-income housing tax credits. That's governed under the IRS Section 42. And it's extensive in regards to how it's monitored, and so those are issues that we want we want to make sure that the development has longevity. We want to make sure that if we're dealing with tax credits or anything else, that our investors that we're in compliant and meeting our obligations with them. And so there are layers of complication that I think that we're very astute with as a company as far as property management, that not only is a part of our business, but again, I think it also helps the community as well to have a development of longevity.
But Joe, one of the things that I would say is, you know, we said in our presentation, and we mean it, that we're here to kind of develop a partnership with the city of South Haven. And if there were a role that we could carve out for the commission, you know, in relationship to the management or in some other form, I think that we would be very open to trying to find a way to work together. But I think that, you know, just to sum up what Charlton is saying is the penalties for falling out of compliance in a tax credit project are very severe. They're millions of dollars are at risk. And so
you have tax credits, and also you have on your market rate side any of your guarantees that you have obligations on that side as well. And so, you know, those, again, and like I said, it's very layered. We have an astute group, not only a compliance component, like Jeff said. I will say that we've worked with other groups before in which we've helped provide capacity to manage, and then we've handed over management. But primarily with this at this time, again, we would have to hear what the city says and look at your goals and objectives. Here, this would come under our management.
Can I ask one question? Because I think I know there's a lot of discussion about for sale housing, and one of the key components to the pricing are some of the potential regulations. And so I think this is a question either for Kate or for Ryan. If we were to build for sale housing on the city of South Haven land, would that bring in prevailing wage requirements? This is kind of a technical question to Ryan, but I think it will impact the cost of construction significantly.
There's no state obligation that would come into play in regard to city-owned property and prevailing wage. Kate, do you have a local policy that would require prevailing wage?
No, I don't believe we do. I think it's just if it's grant mandated or if it's tied to funding from the state or federal government.
Okay. Well, I think that helps a lot in the pricing for a potential for sale product. We would have prevailing wage requirements that tie to the rental.
Okay. Is there anybody from the Overton community or evaluating committee that has a question for Habitat? We have about 2 minutes left on the Q&A portion.
I see Nancy has her hand up.
Nancy's not part of the, if Chris wants to ask the question, that's fine. This is for the Q&A for the Overton evaluating committee. We haven't got to the public comment part yet. That's not in this section.
Serafina, is that your hand up?
Yep.
Hi, I have a question. I know that you were talking about people don't want to spend no more than, affordable is no more than 30% of your take-home income. I know my generation, my age group definitely pays attention to Dave Ramsey, and Dave Ramsey says something about not going over 25%. Is that like a certain percentage, that 30%, or is that adjustable? Just out of curiosity.
Well, I think it's a guideline for pricing and for what the assistance that comes. The way that so I showed a slide that showed what it costs to build an apartment building and what the rents are required for a new building. And so what happens is that the state provides, through the federal government, provides assistance to the developer that allow us to bring the cost down. And so how they decide what is available is a function of those rents. It doesn't require that a person's not required to pay 30% of their rent, but the prices are set at that 30%. So if you were looking to spend 25% of your rent, you might just get a smaller apartment, or and we try to be flexible, but there are strict certifications that happen within those rent levels. So the person who rents the apartment has to prove that they're within this rental range. And so there's a little bit of flexibility in what we charge relative to the rent range, but there's a fair amount of rigidity that comes from the state on that. So, but I think that 25 to 30% is probably the right range to be thinking about in terms of the rents.
Yeah, and everything that Jeff said is really a measurement and a benchmark from a programmatic standpoint. But and you asked a very, very good question. It has become a measure that's used throughout the country as far as affordability. And so from a theoretical standpoint, then some people look at 30%, some people have looked at 33%. You've talked about 25%, which is a discussion right now. And then in some cases it's relative. People in New York and other places are at 50%, which I think is extremely too high. I probably think that most of us would think that, but I think that's the measure that we've used in the past, which I think is a good measure as far as affordability, which is that 30% of your gross monthly income as far as spending towards housing.
But I think you should look at it. I think that your personal finance approach that you described is a good one.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. I agree.
Well, I think that we are now at 8 o'clock. Thank you, Serafina. I think we're now at 8 o'clock. So we've given all the developers time to present their proposals and given a Q&A portion. So we're trying to keep things equal here. So at this point, unless there's any other questions from the Overton Evaluation Committee, we're going to thank Habitat for your proposal and being available for questions. We really do appreciate you sending in your proposal and being here tonight to explain more.
Well, we really appreciate you giving us the opportunity to present, and look forward to working with you in the future if you're kind enough to select us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so at this point, I know that if Ryan, do you have any kind of words of wisdom for the group to where we want to go from here while I get the co-hosts all sorted out here?
Yeah, well, so to reiterate what our goal here is, you've gotten a brief presentation from all three developers who have submitted proposals. I think you've got a flavor for their expertise, the kinds of projects that they've done in other markets, what they're thinking might be possible for this site in the city of South Haven. I think what we're starting to uncover is some potential barriers to sort of like having everything that we ever dreamed of all happening on one site. And so it's going to be worthwhile for us to have some conversation as a committee about what are the most important things that you want to achieve on this site and prioritize some of those. And I think that will help you to narrow down your selection field. But I also want to have some discussion with the committee about expertise and the background of each of these development firms, and make sure that we're really thinking through based on what it is that you want on the site and the tools that you would like those developers to use to get that product type. We'll have a little bit more conversation about that. So Kate, I believe we're going to take public comment first,
yes.
And then we can have a little bit more discussion. And I think there will be an opportunity for us to discuss a little bit tonight. And then I think, Kate, are you planning that we'll convene one more time to make a decision in terms of a recommendation to the city council?
I believe so. I know that there was a lot to take in tonight. I would also probably defer to what the commission wants to do here, but I was, because I know we're already into about 2.5 hours, so I think going much further than this might be going a little bit long. So I was thinking to, I guess, take public comment, and then we can talk about next steps and talk about another meeting to kind of come together, let things germinate, and come back to make a recommendation.
Well, that's great. I think that's the right move. And I would just say, I want to have, when we get together again, I want to have a little bit of conversation about your experience here tonight and your takeaway from each of these development groups. And if we need to do a facilitated session where we really prioritize what are the product types and price points and how much owner occupied versus rental, if we need to kind of narrow those down together through a prioritization exercise, we may want to build that into the scope of the next meeting so that we can really get down to the heart of which firm is going to be the best.
Okay. Sounds good. So do we have anyone who has their hand up who would like to make a public comment? I think Nancy, I don't know your last name. If you had your hand up earlier, if you wanted to be unmuted to make a comment. I don't see anyone's hand up just yet. Nancy, did you want to make a comment? Oh, okay. I'll try to Can you hear me? Yep.
My question is, how do these developers make money on these projects?
Okay, thanks for your question. Ryan, can you answer that?
Well, I'll try. So there's the ideal way, and then there's the reality in some instances. But Nancy, that's a very, very good question. And the trick with housing affordability is if you don't have some of the tax credit programs or state or federal investment, these projects would not make money. But essentially the way that the program works for each of the developers that have proposed using the 4% low-income housing tax credit or a combination of the 4 and the 9%, they're able to build in a developer fee to their overall cost structure. So if they were to build a traditional market rate apartment complex, they would be able to earn a little bit of money on the front end in terms of a developer fee, and they would earn the cash flow every year from the difference between what they charge in rent and what they owe in debt for the bank loan that they take out. That's not the case with affordable housing. There really is very, very little cash flow year over year that they can take above and beyond what they have to use to service their debt. So really what they're doing is taking a fee on the front end once the project is completed and the state has signed off that they've executed as required. They'll take a developer fee that is essentially a percentage of the total project cost. And that gets determined by the state, what they're permitted to take in terms of a fee. And so they will have a property management group that operates the project year over year. And the projects are designed to earn a little bit of extra cash, but MSHDA requires a significant rent reserve, which means they have to put a lot of the extra cash that they make every year back into a fund to help pay for improvements and maintenance and common elements. So a lot of these developers have gotten very good at building a streamlined product and working with the community to get a high quality project done without a lot of extra cost through inefficiencies. And so it's the developers that have done this several times that are very good at it.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. I don't see anybody's hands up, but I'm looking on the, if you would like to ask a question public, you could either put your video on and put your hand up, or at the bottom of your screen, there is a way for you to raise your hand metaphorically, if you will, and I can see that you have raised your hand. So far, I'm not seeing any other persons for public comment. At this point, I think because we're already at well over 2 hours, why don't we talk about what our next steps are, Ryan?
Yeah, great. So what I'd like to do is schedule hopefully one final meeting with the committee where we'll get back together. And what I'm hoping is that you've taken some notes tonight or you have an amazing memory. And when we get back together, we're going to talk about your takeaway from each developer. And we're going to revisit the original concept plan that the city council had signed off on for the RFP, and really talk about the mix of affordable home ownership versus affordable rental product, how much potentially market rate product the committee is interested in, with the recognition that the city council has already done some of this work, right? So we're not going to rehash everything that the council has already done. But prior to narrowing down our selection, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page about goals and objectives. And then what we'll do is we'll put together a rank system where you can begin to vote on the development firms that you feel are best equipped to solve for what we're asking for on this site. We'll share our rank voting, and then we'll have conversation about that. So there will be an opportunity to maybe influence your neighbor a little bit, hear from other people's perspective before we ask the committee to take a final vote in terms of their recommendation back to the city council.
Okay, sounds good. I think that at this point we need to look at our calendars and see about our next date. So it looks to be that the second and third Thursday of the month seem to work the best for this group. And that would probably put us at either October 8th or October 15th. And is there anyone who cannot meet on either one of those days? First, Ryan, the 8th or the 15th, does that work for your schedule?
Those are both good for me.
Okay, and then anyone from the Overton Evaluation Committee, if you can let me know if those dates work for you.
The 15th only works for me at 5:30, not the 7th.
Or not the 8th, you mean?
Or excuse me, not the 8th. Yeah, the 8th will not work.
Okay. Does the 15th then work for the majority, for the group?
Just out of curiosity, why are you going to October? What about a week from tonight?
You mean the 17th, Tim?
Yes.
We can do that. Brian,
Yeah.
are you available on the 17th?
Sorry.
And I say that because I don't know who did take notes and who didn't, and the sooner we do this, the fresher it is in everybody's mind.
Good point, Tim.
Yeah, Tim, I'm with you. I am available next week if the rest of the group can make it.
Unfortunately, I'm not available. I could possibly do Monday, a Monday, but, or no, excuse me, not Monday. But yeah, no, the Thursday doesn't work for me. I'm sorry.
Okay, if we made it at 6, would that 6 or would that work better or?
My appointments are up until 8 that evening, so yeah. But if you guys could do Friday starting at 6. Oh, well, excuse me, not next Friday because I'll be out of town. I'm sorry, I have a complex schedule.
Okay, I'm hearing from at least one other commissioner that the 17th does not work. How does the 24th look for the group?
24th, let me see one moment.
Okay.
24th works for me.
I'm sorry, one moment. Let me just look at my schedule.
Ryan, how's the 24th look for you?
I can do it. Thursdays seem to be a good day.
Yes, I can do that. I can do the 24th at 5:30.
And the other person who couldn't do the 17th can do the 24th. So if I'm not hearing anyone else, it looks like the 24th and 5:30, 6 p.m. Probably getting started earlier is probably better for most if that works for everybody else. So we can do the 24th at 5 p.m. and I'll be sending out a notice for the group.
Kate?
Sounds great.
Yes,
Kate,
Mike.
can I ask Ryan a real quick question, just in clarity? I thought I was clear on this. We're evaluating each of these alternatives on 2 criteria. That is, who can develop the site and who can manage the site, correct?
Yeah, that's a really great point, Mike. Yes. So in all three circumstances, we are anticipating that the developer will also either be or have a property manager that can take care of this project for at least the next 15 to 30 years.
Yes.
And so looking at both of those is going to be important.
Thanks.
Question?
Yes, sir.
I know you're setting it up for the 24th, but I'm curious if those are our two criteria and everything's fresh in our mind and everybody took good notes, is everybody willing or able or possible to take a 5-minute recess and come back and make a decision today?
I wouldn't be. I really do agree. I really do agree with Ryan that we need a process laid out. I mean, we need to take a look at the criteria, weight the criteria, and we have to take a look at each alternative back against that criteria, so that we have something to give the city council that shows that we were deliberate in our consideration. And quite frankly, maybe it's just the limits on my brain, but if we don't chunk it up like that, it's just too daunting to me to make one big decision here tonight.
I second that.
Thank you. Steve, I'm with you in terms of just kind of wanting to get through it and muscle down. I heard enough commentary about the priority of owner-occupied product tonight. I want to make sure that we take the time to really talk through the market realities of owner-occupied product and really talk through the product types that are available and how affordable that those will be if we're pursuing a lot of owner-occupied product. And just kind of level set around that issue so that we all understand kind of what's available in the marketplace. We can then look back at each of the three development proposals and what each developer has proposed to do. Because it does seem like that's a hinge point for a lot of folks on the committee, and I want to make sure we take an adequate amount of time to address that.
I would like to go visit some of these places that these developers have worked on before the next meeting and see what their product actually looks like, and particularly after it's aged a few years.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I don't see any reason why you can't go to one of their developments. I just won't be able to organize a group excursion, but if you want to go out there.
I mean, I'm perfectly able to drive myself. Plus, in the day of COVID, I don't think we need to go as a group. So,
Okay.
but anyway, I just wanted the opportunity to see some of them. And so that's what I was planning on doing. So no, I don't want to make a decision tonight.
This is Gail. I don't want to make a decision tonight. I would like to follow Chris if I can in my car. So let me know, Chris, or whoever else knows.
Okay, well, so it looks like we have the 24th at 5:30, and I'll be sending out some updates to the group. I'll first send you out a meeting request. You can get that on your calendar, and the details for the meeting will be will arrive sometime before that meeting. So
okay, one quick question. In the next meeting, the follow-up meeting, I would like to hear a little bit more from the committee in regards to truly affordable price points. I mean, each three proposals, all of them had pretty good ideas. I kind of like the habitat, but all of them had pretty good ideas. But even with habitat, if you look at the graph, if I'm remembering it right, 30, 40, 80% fell on a rental. If you had four people in a housing, in a family, 4 people in a family, you fell on a rental, and the wages before you can actually afford a house was at $79,000 if my memory served me right. So in this project coming up, it's going to miss not only the first year teacher, but the professionals that Mike was talking about. A lot of those only come out of college, and even after a couple of raises, are just getting about 70 something after about 5 or 6 years. So I read something, it said diversity is the hallmark of a healthy and balanced community. I would definitely think that making sure that that project has a housing for all income groups, I'm not talking about low income or anything. I'm talking about that missing middle. I'm talking about the seniors that want to come out of their big homes into something they can maintain. The missing middle, which includes not just the first-time teachers, our essential workers, but those that have been on the in their profession for 5 or 6 years. Based upon the chart from Habitat, even a 5-year career veteran wouldn't be able to afford a house. And I'm geared towards not the rental, not putting these people in rentals, but having it where they can afford a house. So I would like to have a lot of more discussion on what is truly affordable and market rate.
Yep, I think that that's a good note. We should definitely have that conversation, and I'll bring a lot of data to the next conversation, so you get a sense of what the workforce locally is earning, and what can be built for the price point that would be affordable to those workers. And the other thing that I think I'm going to do is send a follow-up note to each of our development firms. And ask them for a real quick analysis of what they think they could build owner-occupied product for. And we'll kind of do that across the board, ask for essentially the same scenario from each one. That seems to be an important point. All of our developers have affirmed that the concept proposals that they've put in front of us are not final. So if there's something that you'd like any of those developers to change a little bit, this might be the opportunity to give them a window to offer something else in terms of the owner-occupied product. I'll probably have something to share back with you all regarding that from each development group. So I want to thank you all for your dedication tonight. You've been on staring at your computer screen for a long time. I know these can be long evenings. I really appreciate everybody's willingness to participate in this. Everybody had great questions. I'm looking forward to the next phase of the dialogue, and I think we're going to make a lot of progress in 2 weeks.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much, Ryan. Thank you very much for the developers for coming here tonight. And thank you much for our Overton Evaluation Committee. You're doing a fantastic job. And thank you so much for giving us your 3 hours tonight. So see you next 2 weeks. Thank you.